5391. Let's use on the phone lines. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, TC and Heavy Tobago is in the house.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Bago. How are you going?
I am blessed and highly flavored, man. All the program gets so prominent that people like myself can't get to call him, man. Others get bumped off all kind of thing. Well, but nevertheless, I'm okay.
Nice.
I'm okay.
You feeling better and thing now, right? Because last time I heard from there was under the weather.
Yeah. I'm feeling good.
Very
I'm
good.
feeling good. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I hear a caller just called just a little while there and was talking about Wassa and thing. I went through an ordeal with Mr. Wassa, right? Where they had the amnesty and they bring on this, I think it was 2012 to 2013.
Right.
We pay $710. We pay with $710. They're supposed to come and they send somebody to tell you where to hook up the line and how much you have to buy. Right. The person did come and do that within a week time. Lo and behold, we get to find out that to hook up the main, we don't have a main where we is. So they know. Officials come to watch wherever. Boy, years and nothing going on. We was getting bill. And me and my cousin was paying it. But then we said to ourselves, why it is we paying for something that we ain't getting? So we decided to take ourselves and go to Mr. Wassa. We went, we make a report. We area representative, we let him know what was the problem because you have to let your area representative know so they could see what they could do. He write a letter on behalf of us, everything. Wassa come to watch the thing again for the third time. Boy, nothing. Boy, the bill come up to must say about 4,000 something. The other day when Mr. Leon started to come down and Wassa people, they rushing now to come and put down the lines. Yes, they come and put it down. But I went to them, I said, but what happened to the outstanding monies? I said, I come here so more than once until I threaten lawsuit. The fella pull out a phone, tell my mother to sign it, to expunge the money. I said, well, I could not do this all the time. I said, no, it takes somebody who had the I can say balls to come and shake all you up in Wassa for you to do all your work. So all over Tobago, they come in and put down the people and them lines and them what they pay for. Now I hear the mister talk about the food card. No, it comes just as how if you put money in the bank or you expect pay. Where you go and do? One start to shop first? Well, I tell you why I just do. I just go to the cashier. I don't have a food card, but I just go to the cashier and know I deposit some money in fast cash or wherever I don't like bank. Okay? So I just use the quick deposit. And I will go and swipe my card to see if the money come in. I might put back money on my credit card by the machine. So I will check my credit card before I go and shop. And yes, some of them does it. They say they go and shop the money there because they don't want to do the work. But I thank him for paying for Tanti goods. I praise him. And I wish other people could do that because I does it. I don't have to be a senior citizen person. Maybe somebody in front of me and I might have been short of $20 or whatever. That people do it for me too. But let me give you a small joke. Me and my husband going and make groceries. Well, I just make real groceries. We gone in a particular grocery, make the grocery. Done cash are looking for my bank card. Can't find my bank card. Here, oh Jesus Christ, I leave the bank card on the bill. The owner who knows me turn and say, well, you could go with the grocery and you could come back tomorrow. I said, nah, pack up my grocery, I'm coming back. I come home, get my bank card, went back, swipe my card and get my groceries and bounce. So incidents do happen that you have good supermarket owners does help out that situation. So you guys are locked on and listening.
Yes.
And you all keep safe.
All right, Mr. Bigo, thank you very much.
I call back again.
All
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Before we take the next call, Heavy, we want to invite people to go up on
Go
Facebook.
up on Facebook and YouTube.
And YouTube now. We
Yeah.
are live on Street 919 FM on Facebook. And on YouTube, IWER TV on YouTube. I want to say thanks to Google, right?
You learn it now. You learn it now, right?
Google is a frustrated old man. Google, I did it faster than the first time.
Yeah.
But Google just frustrating himself. He's a frustrated friend. And I can understand why.
Oh gosh, let me don't go there.
No, I could go there.
Let's not go there.
No,
Anyway.
I understand why Google is frustrated.
Okay.
You understand?
No.
Because great is the Google is my friend. I love you and thanks so much for helping me out.
Now,
just
you see, somebody brought to my attention, right? With all the problems that people not getting the food cards, they're not getting money on the food cards, they're not getting the grants. So far, people are complaining they're not getting the $1,000, neither the $1,500 grant. People not getting no hampers. Well, some people not getting no hampers. They were promised hampers and not getting no hampers. And people are now...
It's a kind of friend thing. We know that.
Yeah, so people are now frustrated. People are now asking people for help and thing. And we're saying that the government systems are now failing us, so they're now dropping the ball there also. And the cry is that there's no money. This is the cry, eh?
So why you tell people fill out all this form and do all of this and you know you wasn't given the $1,000?
The cry is no, there's no money. NIS is crying that they have no more money. They're talking about freezing pensions and freezing this and freezing that and all this thing. The finance minister is talking more about vaccines and all of this stuff. But people in the country are now facing landlords pay what the rent money, banks what the loans to be paid. We're not seeing nobody's talking about asking the banks to freeze people loans.
At all.
The phone companies want the money for the internet and the phone bills.
Thank you.
And now is that time when children have to go to school on the internet, so you need internet.
Yeah.
Right? You need to, and if you don't have internet, you have to be buying phone cards to put a plan on your phone. That's more money coming out. Then the groceries prices, people complain, the prices keep raising and going all about the place. Then on top of that, now, we have WASA, T&Tech, all these things have to be paid for. Then you have your furniture and your appliances by codes. Then you have your mortgage for your vehicle and your house that the bank coming for too. What is the plan for the government to get money to pay these things that
We have no money?
TC? Why? And this is just one thing I want to say.
again,
Don't vex with me, eh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why are we still paying? Why didn't put a freeze on the rental of buildings that we are paying for that is not in use right now? We are still paying exuberant rentals of buildings and in all over the place. That is closed. The buildings are closed because the offices are not using people home. Put a freeze on that, and the money that they're going to pay all these hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in rentals every month that the government is paying, take it now and give people the money on the food card, help pay for the people, pay for these things.
Why?
Get the people the grant, get the people the relief grant.
Who is you to say that?
So the rich must continue collecting the
Who
rent?
is you to say that? When we spoke about CPEP getting smaller money, right? Right? Our good friend from Bartaria called and said, and that is my friend, he said, they cannot adjust.
So
they cannot go and tell their children that today you're not able to eat T-bone steak.
TC.
You understand? Heavy.
Good.
Because I'm not even talking about the big buildings that they're renting.
They're talking about...
Why they can't just say, okay, we will no longer take entertainment allowance.
Or the perks.
Or traveling allowance.
Yeah, the perks alone.
The perks alone, we're giving up that. As a government, we're standing together as the government and show the people of Trinidad and Tobago the perks that we are accustomed getting, we don't want it. Because we feel the cry. So this could go into something else.
That's all. All the people on them on these boards, all these board members, all these state boards that they have, that all these people just collecting big money. Why you can't cut them? You can cut their salary. They are not getting perks.
No, you can't.
How much money a man on a petrol train board getting?
It still have a petrol train board?
Well, they're calling it the heritage company now.
It still have a board for...
Of course. There's a board for everything.
All from hell.
They have all these state boards and them collecting big money. You're talking about $30,000 a month and everything, man. Many ten ham, lamb, and jam. Oh. But people can't get money. A little $200 on a phone card.
During the year.
On a food card.
During the year is ham. Lamb and jam.
Lamb and jam.
Yeah.
You understand? They're eating T-bone steak. They're eating lobster and shrimps. Champagne and caviar. Wise people can't even get a little money. Granny in the grocery. A man call and say, Granny in the grocery. Pick up things and go by the cash and she food card and no money on it. She had to pay for it for she. You understand? These embarrassing things. People trying to struggling out here. They, up to now, people follow the form and nothing talking about that $1,000 grant, nor that $1,500 grant. Yeah, right? But we pay them millions of dollars every month for buildings, for rental for buildings.
Yeah, you can't talk about that.
Don't talk about that.
Yeah.
No, you're against the government for talking about that.
Yeah.
Talking on behalf of the people to get good things, you're against the government. You understand? But to hell with you and the government.
Yeah.
We need it. Yes, we need to help the people. It's frustrating the people.
Yeah, and it's frustrating everybody. Myself,
you understand?
Everybody.
Nobody is saying don't lockdown and thing and we trying to clean the pandemic.
But making no sense, boy.
You understand? But oh gosh, boy. Come on, man. Let me get some calls on the line. Let me hear what they're saying now, because people are ringing.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good morning, TC and
good afternoon,
morning, TC. But if you have a problem, how you know the God don't cut me? How you know the Lord is service for you? Better for me to cry sometime before I feel pain, a little pain. We complaining. Every day we complaining on food.
Oh, so take it to the Lord in prayer.
And so and say sometimes we just fail.
Yes, darling.
And then you're going through the thing, they're complaining, don't matter the boy, every time you go back to God, God say, help the people, help us. We crying, we hungry, you expect us to leave us there. So when we want in Trinidad and Tobago?
But darling,
when we want?
Darling, when come election time, I tell you, come and vote, say, you're voting for God.
But no, you don't have to vote.
No, just say voting for God.
Some are plenty about the vote.
All right.
Plenty about the vote. But when the comment time come, now when the best government will, plenty about the thing, plenty vote for Dr. Rowley. And black we, with the black, you say black, and he did think that. But we know you can blow, goes for somebody else. And then we complaining. Don't complain.
So don't complain when you have no food in the cupboard.
No, pray.
Pray. When you have no food in the fridge, pray.
Jesus said he provide. Jesus will provide.
Okay, Jesus will provide. All right.
Let me tell you.
Sometimes we contradict ourselves. Blessed is the man who have his own. Blessed is the man who have his. In the Bible say that, darling. Jesus will provide. So sit down home and don't go up and don't get up and get your own. Blessed is the man that have his own, darling.
What's my TC?
Yes, sweetheart. I understand that God. I understand that God is the answer for everything. But at times, go ahead.
TC, I'm talking to you.
Go ahead.
How you get up this morning? How you get up?
Sweetheart, I understand that you need.
Yeah, you need.
You see, you're not even understand. You're not even listening.
Let me understand now, man.
I know. I didn't say. I don't want you to understand. I'm telling you what I understand. I'm telling you that I understand that we need God. I understand that we need that higher understanding, and we need that security in our life. Right? But at the same time needing all of that, right? There are certain things that God doesn't provide for you. You have to provide for yourself. But because if you sit home, darling, don't come out your house and don't go and get things to eat. And you just sit down there and you pray, and you say God will provide.
Nope.
Everybody, every day. For 3 square meals every day.
You can't go nowhere?
Oh,
Wow.
Lord. See that? All right, you enjoy that.
If you're sick and can't go nowhere, you have to sit at home
All
and
right,
wait. Have a
All
blessed day.
right,
Bye-bye.
you too, sweetheart. You too.
Wow.
Yeah, God is the excuse.
I just study the analogy
God
sometimes. I have to laugh.
God is
Yes?
the excuse for falling for foolishness.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
In that same Bible, God show you where you have to go and work hard and get where you have to get.
By the sweat of a man, bro, you shall
eat bread.
Okay. Let's go. I didn't want to go down that Bible, but I wanted to entertain that. Let me take a call. Let's try and just see. Don't complain. Don't complain.
Yeah,
go
don't say
provide.
nothing. Hello.
Don't say nothing.
That's some good day, fellas.
Good
man.
Yes, brother.
I don't want to contradict mother. I understand what she's saying.
I understand what mother's saying too, but
Yeah.
but you have to cry and bawl.
But all I ask mother is to preach that same philosophy to the ministers.
Thank you.
Let them know
Because like them don't know
provide
God.
For them too.
Yeah,
Because
that's for them too.
salary is enough.
Oh, no, but for the rich, them don't need God because them have money.
Yeah, exactly. Them want the money. Them
Them don't need God.
Yeah.
Only people know about God.
Yeah.
No, I call him to say something here. Something that everybody does say. And this is just my opinion. I'm not going to say I'm correcting anything. Whether you vote PNM or UNC, that has nothing to do with the ruling party in power, After that is governance, After election done,
It's governance.
all that time is compact, all that is campaigning and all, they are vote, even if it's a strong UNC, whatever. After election done and it nominated you as prime minister, after that is governance,
Yep.
Politics done from that, But we keep carrying and striving the politics all through the year, all through the next year, into the next
5 years. The campaigning for 5 years straight, the campaigning.
After that is finished, the campaigning done, from there is governance now, is a matter of leading the people in the correct direction, whether you vote UNC and your party didn't win, whether you didn't vote at all. Because every decision you make is going to affect your citizens.
Correct.
Not just your party.
Correct.
So when you borrow $50 billion, it's not your party, not PNM paying it back,
It's we paying it back, we taxpayers paying it back, and we churn paying it back.
Is management. That's where everything changes. Management from that point forward.
Correct is right.
But I locked on and listening still, brothers.
All right, brother. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, TC and Heavy again.
Good afternoon.
Heavy, I want you to take a bow. I'll tell you what. You see that suggestion you mentioned there with the rentals of those big buildings? I was thinking about that 2 weeks ago. I would like to ask the question, and this is no allegation, but it's a fact. If the Attorney General in-laws, okay, you think they will settle for $1,500 or $1,000 a month for rental? And I'll tell you why I'm going there. Imagine a poor person have to get $1,500 or $1,000, and the pressure they have to go through as a citizen. And you are correct. Those buildings is closed.
The clothes are not using them tabakit. All them buildings that serve like monument all over the place. Nobody inside of them to lock up. Only security guard in there. They could stop the rentals.
No.
Stop the rentals.
Right. So how you could tell me now? And let me say to that last caller, he on point. Because people missing the point, Governance has nothing to do with your political party. And I have been calling radio from since till thy kingdom come. I feel from now on I want to be the independent tabakit. You know why? Because I really want to combat you. I want to come with it. I is independent tabakit from today. Because I feel I want to talk anything I want to talk.
Right.
Look, let me talk. I am saying How you could tell me you're a government minister in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and huge hundreds of thousands, and poor people cannot get 1,500 and 1,000.
So you're telling me?
Yeah.
It's not
people have
making
no
any
problem with
sense
that.
at all.
And they have no problem with that.
It have people who is
And I
supporting
tell you, you know,
the government and have no problem with that. How
And
can you
let
have
me
no
tell you
problem
this.
with that?
you see, when there's a sycophant and a marabunta,
I
and a
like when you
saying
call them
across the
marabunta.
board, whether it's UNC or PNM, that's not my business. But I'm saying the poor and the vulnerable is suffering.
That's right.
Look, the woman call and talk about a basic food
A
card.
food card.
Look, you always just mention a senior citizen in the grocery with a food card until somebody has to go and pay for
Fishy
it.
grocery here.
So you telling me that these buildings is sitting there as white elephant? And you know, let me say this to you before I come out. All you know, every month, these people check on their account already, you know.
Of course.
Let me repeat this thing. These people who getting taxpayers' money, where they're taking a dump truck and an excavator and taking money from the treasury.
Of course.
For people to get $1,000 and $1,500, you have to fill out all kind of form.
Yeah.
You have to fill out form from when your ancestors came in as slave.
And Tabakit, and Tabakit, you remember I came on the show and said they should give every citizen $1,000 because you were on the call and they chastised me. The Marbantas and them call and cost me. They say I stupid. I talking stupidness.
Let me say this to you. I have news for you. I think it's a member from AmCham or one of these chamber. You know, I think it came from one of the Syrian guys in one of the chamber. And you know what he is saying. Just as what you said. He's saying give every citizen $2,000. So what it will do, when they open up the country, you will have spending power and it will heat up the economy.
Yes.
So which means you was the first person to come with such an idea, and it came from one of the chamber, one of the board members said it.
Yes.
So before I leave, I want to ask all sycophant and marabuntas how they will feel if the people who own one Alexander, all these buildings, getting $1,500 or $1,000 a month for their building, if they will say yes to that. They will say no. You know why? Let me not go there.
Oh, gosh.
I say marabuntas and all sycophants on all sides, all your rusty politics and come with the facts. Independent Tabakit in the house.
Thank you, Tabakit. Love your contribution. And that's what you're saying. That's what we're saying. Gosh, boy. Ah, Lord.
Rasta man.
Boy.
Yes,
I ain't called to make no bacchanal. I ain't called to make no bacchanal.
I'm listening.
I just want you to hear more. Heavy.
Yes, brother.
I agree that the ministers and them, the folks, at least they could give up the folks for the hour because the folks is plenty money.
Right.
And then another thing too, I just digressing, but I ain't staying long. I'm coming off quick. I just wanted to get in this before I hang up before time. If the chairman of WASA could make the decision that he make in this pandemic, educated man, you see what educationers do? Just take away the common sense. If he can make a decision like that in this pandemic, I find they should fire him forthwith.
No,
you never to know what.
Oric, he did pull the plug on it, eh? He did say was I'm ready to do that as yet, and he stopped it. So
the man who pulled the plug is
but
the minister.
The minister, yeah. A public utilities.
Yeah, but he's speaking about the chairman.
Oh, you're talking about the chairman? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. Good.
I find they should fire him one time because if he could do something like that, a big educated man and there's an MBA and all kind of thing behind the name. And if he could make a decision like that in this pandemic, they should supposed to get rid of him because later down the road he could do some choppiness again. But under all of that, the people who supposed to get money on the food card and all of that,
Yeah.
they should really take a stand on it. The honest way that this country will come better and do things the right way is when the population stop thinking about either PNM and either UNC and start thinking about country.
That's
and
right.
only the
Thank you.
Rastaman, I want to ask you a question. And
I want to talk you off, and that's straight for you to talk.
Good.
No, and you would like the question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
What side of the fence, which side of the fence you think the people that hold in the food card, the majority of people that hold in the food card, what side of the fence you feel they stand on?
On PNM side of the fence.
Oh, okay.
On PNM side of the
Okay,
fence.
thank you.
And
they
see,
thank you.
That is why anytime the PNM take any stand, they just come out and defend, even if they know it wrong.
So you telling me you're standing on the PNM side of the fence, you're going to the supermarket, the food card have
no money in it, yeah.
And you still have nothing to say.
Yes, but listen, just now the sycophants will be in the minority here, because even some of the sycophants on the other side of the fence going against their own party nominal. So just now they're going to be in the minority because some of them eyes opening. You understand?
Really?
Some of them eyes opening.
Really?
The eyes just open all now. And on election day, like the eye does get blinders. Donkey guide.
Well, wherever they are supposed I want you to see more that scores that.
All right, Ulrich. Ulrich, all right. Thank you.
Yeah. You understand? No,
Yeah.
And that is what has tripped me every, and that's why I don't talk politics or I don't be on the political side of the fence.
Nah,
because when they watch it,
yeah.
it's you self getting advantage.
Yep.
It is you self getting advantage. Take this call, Andy.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, TC. I had was to call back. No, I calling to bash nobody. I not on that.
All right, got you.
People are complaining about the weekend lockdown, holiday weekend lockdown. But TC and Heavy, let me be reasonable and realistic. Who causing the problem? Who breaking the quarantine? Who breaking the curfew? When I tell you 9 o'clock, they in your house, we trying we best to keep this thing down. And you see how much people that charge for breaking the curfew?
How much people that charge for breaking the curfew?
They charge for breaking the curfew.
How much people that charge, Mr. Bego?
But they pass 100. We pass 100.
Well, 100 with a population of 1.7 million people is a little bit, you know.
No, listen to what I'm saying. I just given you the 100 mark.
100 is a little bit.
I was
But
on Facebook and I was going through it and reading where they was telling you how much people break the tomato must be 700.
What point you getting at?
You're trying to say that the lockdown for this weekend was good? Was that a good thing?
What I'm trying to say, the reason why they come and say, yeah, well, we will give an additional for the holidays and whatever. Let's be realistic.
Yeah, tell us.
We stick breaking some of we is. We leaving and we going by we partner having a Father's Day line. We going by we partner.
I can't side with you on that. Normally other side with you, but I can't side with you on that.
Also drink we beer or 2 home.
And that is what people doing.
Brunch.
That is what people doing. They're staying home and drinking a little alcohol and have. But which part having these lines that nobody don't know about?
Let me be realistic.
I'm being realistic.
You're still having some of them doing zesting and things.
That is the very minority.
Is that what it says?
What I'm trying to say
Tobago,
is we
and normally Tobago, I will normally support you. No, Tobago. Tobago, I will normally support you. 2 months ago, Tobago, I will side with you on that. 2 months ago, before the SOE, right?
And before the numbers going up
and before the numbers skyrocket, I would side with you with that statement you just made there. Now I cannot side with you. No, because that is no longer the truth.
It's not happening right now, Mr.
That is no longer happening, Tobago.
Mr. Tobago,
that
now?
was happening.
It's no longer happening.
No. And if, wait, just now. And if it's happening, if it used to happen.
But how the rest are young lady? I see the young lady picture on Facebook.
One young lady doing
for
what?
breaking the curfew. For breaking the curfew, and she had to pay $7,000. And you know what?
You don't know the circumstances behind it, Mr. Tobago.
Tobago, one person breaking the curfew, even when, before this pandemic, when we had our curfew a few years ago.
All the curfew people break
every curfew had in Trinidad here, it had people break the curfews. This didn't start with this curfew that happening here. So don't do that. It had curfews in Trinidad before, and people broke the curfew. Right? What I'm saying is, and here what they're doing, The three or four people that break in the curfew, that making headlines in the news more than the murders. How? More than murder, more than missing people.
Yeah, people missing right
more
now.
Than missing people. Yeah. How somebody that damn break a curfew making more news right now than a murder?
Wow.
Listen to me, TC.
Tobago, we have to cut out that. That was happening a while back. It is no longer in the majority.
That's correct.
Say what I said, I will look at your
all right, go ahead.
There's a site we're showing you people who are missing, and they are where they're coming back and giving you an update that they were found. They're giving you little details, and have some they ain't gonna get into no big details. Yes, I agree with you that you're not seeing this big thing about people missing, but what I am specifically talking about, the reason why we in this curfew, because the man didn't want it to bring a curfew. And he tell us that he didn't want to, but because of all the thing, according to what we saying, from 2 months back, we are now reaping what we sow. And yes, I'm telling you, it is affecting me, who would have had to go to the grocery this weekend here, and I had to hustle to the grocery come Friday. I normally make my grocery on a Saturday, right? When my husband done work, we leave and we go to the grocery. And yes, it is affecting me, but come on, TC, let me be reasonable and let me put some of the blame where the blame supposed to be.
I cannot. Okay, so you telling me just now, you wanna go there? You telling me, right, that Sunday coming here would have been more damaging to this country, right, than Friday? What went on here Friday? Tell me, if you had to choose Sunday or Friday to be a more damaging day to Trinidad and Tobago with this COVID virus, which day would have been more damaging? People who go in by the family to keep a little lime Sunday, or the madness that take place here Friday?
Friday was madness. Thousands, no social distancing, that people over the grocery.
You can't answer that because we're talking realistic here now.
Yeah.
We're talking realistic. This is not politics. This is not politics, Tobago.
I know politics. That's nothing to do with no politics. Right? When I call another show, I leave politics aside. But I quite agree with you. But what I am saying, it was a rush. Why I of myself going to endanger myself by be upping people behind, and I don't know.
But you went and endanger yourself because yesterday you went to the grocery. You endanger yourself. You're contradicting yourself.
I didn't go to the grocery.
You said to me you had to go to the grocery yesterday because normally you doesn't make it on a Saturday.
Heavy. I said it would affect me because normally on a Saturday, I will go to the grocery on a Saturday and not on a Friday. But because it is Saturday is a lockdown, obviously I would have to go to the grocery. But the grocery what we went to, it didn't have that mad rush here in Tobago. I could tell you that.
Well, ask any Trinidadian. The groceries was crazy.
And all we are saying, Mr. Tobago,
all right, darling. All right, cool. No, it doesn't make logical sense, Heavy.
She said one girl get locked up for breaking the
One girl
curfew.
get locked up.
We have 1.5 million people here. One person
It does not make logical sense.
Even if it's 500 people get locked up, it still have 1.5 million people here that stay at home out of the 500 people that get locked up.
Normally, I stand with most of Tobago's discussions here. Today, I cannot stand with her. I cannot. I'm telling you. Hi, good afternoon. Hello.
CC and Heavy, good afternoon.
Yeah,
Good
Google,
afternoon.
what you seen?
I just want to say,
Yeah.
you asked a question yesterday, and I just want to draw a reference to you
Right,
of a gentleman who recovered from COVID.
right.
If you ever read his story, you'll understand that you see the two things that you're comparing, it's not comparable.
What two things is
A
that?
gentleman got COVID. Hear what he said. He went to get ice cream. His family had a little get together. His
Right.
family
Right.
had a little get together. He went to get the ice cream. He went for the ice cream, and he went by the family members. When he went for when he left home, he was good.
Mm-hmm.
He went by the ice cream place. He get the ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Went by the family for the get together. When he went there, everybody eat ice cream, the lime, the tap, the thing. Just like if what we'll do a Father's Day.
Right.
That's what they have. Right now, the gentleman he came out about a week or less than, just about
Google, let me
a week
stop
ago.
you early. Because he cannot tell exactly where and when he contracted COVID.
Yeah, he don't know.
Because
You listen to
wait,
story,
wait,
you listen
wait,
to story,
Google,
story
wait,
is that-
Google, just now, Google, I will allow you to finish. But let us not do that because he cannot.
I didn't
Because
say that
2
he
weeks
gave an ice
after,
cream place, eh?
he didn't. He
I did
couldn't.
not say he
Right,
gave
and,
an ice cream
but you're
place.
trying to
I gave
imply.
you the
You are
story.
trying to imply that he either get it from the ice cream place or from his family.
I'm showing to you family gathering.
Oh, so
I'm showing
then.
you that it was a family gathering. And
But
I'm
he
saying
not.
he
But
got
he
it
not
from the
sure
ice
that he
cream
get
place.
it. But he not sure that he get from his family either. He cannot
Because
pinpoint.
2 members of his family died. Wait, now say wait, I'm telling him to finish.
Go ahead.
That's why I'm telling him to finish because you see a rush me like a pit bull. But you
No,
finish.
no, because you come to sell my dreams, Google.
No, I'm
Yes,
saying to
you come to sell me dreams.
like
You come to
family
sell me
gatherings
dreams. You come to sell me dreams. He's my friend, I could tell you.
TC, I am telling you that family gatherings, the man said there was a family gathering.
Also, family gatherings is more damaging now
Than lining
lining
up
up in the grocery
I am
street
saying
or
to
that
you,
madness
TC,
that take place Friday.
But TC,
Google.
TC, but the family. But
Pray on
let
it.
me finish the story now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me finish the story.
Well,
Because
Google, I'm
you
giving you
know the
your
story
opportunity.
that
Go
the
ahead.
gentleman-
Go ahead,
his
Google.
sister-
Google,
ahead.
right, Google.
His sister died.
Right.
His sister died. His sister husband died. Right? That's from the family gathering.
Right.
His nephew ended up in hospital. He ended up in hospital and he gave a story about how he was close to death's door.
Right.
And that's from the family gathering.
Okay.
Because all of them were observing all the protocols before.
Right.
Right? And he was giving his story of telling people, hey, that innocent family gathering, look how I lost loved ones.
Right.
And
Then-
all I'm saying to you, TC,
Yeah.
is that we might see it as an innocent gathering, you know. My mom, my grandmother, me, my wife, my son, everybody, everybody. But at the
Well,
end
you
of the
know,
day,
make
look
things
what that
worse
man
for
is
you.
saying happened.
Well, you know, make things worse. Here why? Here where it will come down to in my analogy. Here where you now tell me there. Right? Well, then we could open back the country because we'll observe all protocols. Right? So we could open back the country and do our daily duties. But just when it comes to holidays and these things,
Yeah,
keep our
just
curfew.
keep a curfew for holidays
I'm
alone.
telling you, let's keep our
No
curfew
family
for-
gatherings.
No family gathering.
But let me go out there and let me work.
Yes,
let me go to the grocery. Let me go all about the place. But just
Because
keep,
Friday-
just stay home. Just stay home. Just stay home.
Unbelievable.
Google it.
you're
There's a paralysis in the analysis.
Google, you can't fool me.
That's what you all got from what I said.
But that way, no,
But just say
when you say it out
family
loud,
gatherings
he
are
was-
fortunate.
he was observing all protocols before.
Yeah,
But because of the comfort of his family gathering-
Wait, you see,
Google.
I was observing all the protocols too.
But because of
See,
the
I was
family,
observing all the
and you get it
protocols.
from family?
TC, wait. TC, I was observing all the protocols. I used to leave from in front of my house here with a neighbor who working HGC. He would pick me up home, bring me to work.
Google, we have less than a minute.
You have less than a minute to wrap up because
So,
you know we're heading to the top.
only be careful how you're saying it.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful.
You have to be careful.
You feel talking
You
to Bartaria,
brother. You have to be Bartaria brother today because me and you closer than close. So you can't sell me that dream, Google. That dream you selling me. That's a dream. Because you now tell me that family gatherings is more dangerous
than one Friday.
Because of the comfort, and I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because of the comfort level, my cousin might think that my family.
My family, yeah.
We can even have no mass around there.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
But then if it's that, then we just go back to the country and let's don't have no family gatherings.
Like foot and mouth disease, boy.
We're going for a break. We're going to be back. We're going for a break.
10 seconds.
Ladies! No winter can cool you, baby girl, so your heart. Only independent ladies want honey behind this, baby. For a very strange reason, baby, you're so underrated. Strike it up, strike it up. Hey, girl, but there's no one better than you at all. There is no one could never call you a friend because you're hotter than them. You are the best overall, you're better than them. One time. Don't stink anyway. We're ready to go back on the road and say hands to the air. Because we up, don't stink anyway. Hey. 1, 2, 3. Tell them, hey. So you wanna wine, so you wanna move with the crew, so you wanna drink everything that's fine. Girl, what's another wine? Hey, so if we move with the crew, no one drink, we go 2 by 2. Pass one sack for the well, after the well get through. We're bet. Cause I wanna feel the feeling. I say, who can't wait to go on a costume again? 1, 2. Don't speak anyway. Speak every day. Spend money day is a violent. I say every day, so we up, don't speak anyway. And if you love so how we say 1, 2, 3. So let we do this thing the right way. And let we pick up the vibes in here.
Patrice again.
Lyrical, girl, still my heart like a criminal. Somebody make me up to
Roll up on me like a girl.
Socialist, that's why. Socialist like a criminal. Hey, no girl, I come here alone. I ain't breaking no code. Stop the ball, right now. Girl, when you feel like I can make you feel nice. And we could jump all night. Like your head nice. Run to the bottom.
So high, check it out and hold it close.
Let's see why, let's see. Hey, girl, run this one. Bend your back and one. Come for that. Give me that one. Give me that, girl. Give me. Hey, girl, you look so good. Very fast and nice. Give me that one. Let them help me sing. I go deep and wine like a criminal. No resistance, shot. Look it up and wine like a criminal. Like a criminal. Stick it up and criminal. No. Help me sing. If you wine on, you cannot tell nobody. This is between you and me. Keep the vibes that you're bringing. Bring it away.
Keep the bumper rocking on me.
Everybody give it up for Patrice Roberts, please.
Somebody make some noise.
Simpsons Memorial Limited, number 63 Eastern Main Road, Laventille. Internationally accredited funeral directors and embalmers. A full-service funeral home serving families of Trinidad and Tobago and internationally since 1945. At Simpsons Memorial Limited, we serve with dignity in assisting families in honoring the memory of their loved ones. Our services include professional funeral and pre-planning, burials and cremation, custom-built and imported caskets, coffins and cremation trays, cemetery management, limousines, mourners cars, grief counseling, web streaming of funerals, fully air-conditioned chapel with live musical accompaniment, full global shipping and receiving of loved ones. We specialize in facial restorations. Call us anytime, day or night, at 623-8688. That number again is 623-8688. 623-8688. Simpsons Memorial Limited. Superior service, always with excellence.
Take me to the king. I don't have much to bring. More to love, yes it's true. Pennywise, just for you. So real, get that perfect smile. Beauty's in every aisle. To take care of your body, we have all you need to stay healthy. Yeah, Pennywise. More to love, yes it's true. Pennywise, just for you.
Pennywise gives you more to love.
Hey, you keeping safe? I hope so. I don't really know what will happen when everything will back up, but the line had to go on. But in the meantime, just come online with the live wire. I'm on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. Or you could check us out on the live on Facebook at the Street 919 FM or on YouTube at Street TV. Don't forget to share the live. That might just be as important as you keeping safe. So mask up, sanitize, tune in to the Street 919 FM, Lime on the Live Wire, Saturday afternoons, 5 to 8 p.m. Don't worry, I gonna be home in time for the curfew. Keep safe.
If you could top up your car when you want, give me $5 in super. Your phone when you want. Hello? You'll call me back, my credit done in. Why you can't top up your TV when you want? Well, now you can with Direct TV Prepaid. Top up when you want and get the best in entertainment with a 15 or 30-day TV top-up. Don't hurt your head. Get all your favorite TV shows, movies, and more without having to bang your belly. Now you're really looking good with Direct TV Prepaid. Well, what you waiting on? Purchase your kit, install, and activate with WhatsApp or SMS at 3903288.
The Gospel of the Kingdom radio program with Gilbert James is now on the Street 919 FM every second, third, and fourth Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. and every first and third Sunday from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Monday. The Bible says, the Gospel of the Kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end shall come. For more info, call 652-0924 or 298-4540 and join us every second, third, and fourth Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. and every first and third Sunday from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Monday for the Gospel of the Kingdom radio program with Gilbert James.
Hi there, I'm Lester Sublal, inviting you to join me on the first, second, and third Saturday, 8:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. for the program Slow Gospel Music, and on the fourth and fifth Saturday from 8:30 p.m. for an extended version of Slow Gospel Music on Street 91.9 FM.
The Gap Man Limited specializes in products that cater to all your health needs. The Male Enhancement Package targets the areas of the body that contribute to erectile dysfunction. The Male Enhancement costs $1,400. The Gap pills are priced at 250 pills for $500 and 500 pills for just $900. For the best in eye care, get the super combination of a Super Bright and the Body Healer. To improve the heart's function and circulation, get the Gap pills and Formula C. To get a total body cleanse daily, use the Gap Body Healer and Big C, all for a super low price of $1,300. To order your products from the Gap Man Limited, call 628-4531 for products that cater to all your health needs.
For more info, contact 476-7268.
Hi, what's up, TNT? This is Wayne Johnson out of Brooklyn, New York. I always wanted to do something back home, and we're going to be doing our gospel segment on Mondays from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight. That's 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on 91.9 FM. Listen what I want you to do. Spread the word. Spread the word, TNT. Salvation, full and free. Salvation is for everybody. Mondays from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight. That's 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on 91.9 FM.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
It is just about let me check my time, man. Let me check
5 minutes.
5 minutes past the off 2 o'clock in 25 minutes. We are supposed to be hearing from our goodly Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley. Let me pelt some jobs so I'll get some advertising next week.
Okay.
Right here. Right? I'm gonna pelt some job. So I'll get some advertising. You understand my name, Goko? Because I don't know where Google was really going with one person's story, one family's story, which I really it's sad to hear that it had people that really lost their life.
Condolences to the family.
Condolences to the family, you know, and if you bring something like that to the forefront, then that family also was being reckless.
And
because knowing the restrictions, you're not supposed to, right?
No, this is what has happened.
Right? So you're sharing the story, but it's also irresponsible, right? 1. 2. Google, you're my friend. Don't sell me dreams. Let's remain friends. Let's remain friends, Google. Do not sell me dreams. Right? If you and Barataria and all have all the dreams to sell it elsewhere. Heavy does not control the board in this program. I control the board. Right? And if you know me, I'm a very emotional guy. I don't like stupidness at all. Not even from friends. That is why Barataria cannot call my program here. And you allow Barataria to call me all kind of stupid on your program, Google. And I didn't even call you after and say, Google, but use my friend. I didn't even call your personal number and say, Google, how you could allow Barataria to do that? Me and you go way back. And I did not call you because you allowed him to do it and I allow you to do you. But don't call here to sell no dreams. Do not do that. Right? That story that you give us there is 1 in 1.5 million.
Yep.
Right? 1 in 1.5 million.
And this is what I keep doing.
That story cannot stand up against what went on in this country here Friday. Nope. And I talking not from a political standpoint. I talking from a sensual standpoint.
Common sense.
Common sense. It cannot stand up, right? Because Friday could kill families.
More than one family.
Not one family or one person recovering and coming to tell the story. 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, thousands could call and say, you know, I really take the chance and I wasn't going out all the time and I observed protocols. And I try all my best to stay away. But Friday I had to go because
2 days are lockdown.
2 days are lockdown. And then
I had to get food in my house.
Contract COVID. Yeah. And you would then say to them, you're not sure that is the Friday you contract it. Because nobody can tell when they really contract it.
Yeah.
It's like a woman who is sexing with a man and telling the man on the night of the 25th at 9:45, as you scoot, I know that is the time I get pregnant. Right? That is a dream seller. Don't do that. Be responsible. Friday, I think
two things could send up the numbers.
I would say this because I believe this. I believe that the Prime Minister had good intentions by saying what he said in advance to give people the time to go, as I said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to do what they have to do so the bulk would not be outside on Friday. But he's not understanding the economics right now.
He's not understanding.
He's not understanding poor people because he's not poor.
No. So you thinking everybody have money?
Everybody have a little
they could go tomorrow.
They could have to be on Friday.
They don't understand people waiting for a salary, waiting for a check.
Exactly. I am living poor, so I understand what poor people is going through. And I say this because I wanted to understand where I'm coming from.
Yep.
He did it with good intentions for people to have enough time. They wouldn't have to bulk up Friday. Well, then they should have paid people early. Or tell whoever working, pay the workers early this week.
Yeah.
Because everybody getting paid Friday.
And some people get paid Friday 3 o'clock.
Thank you. So because between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, where you think you're going?
In the grocery?
Where you go again?
Because you're not home in your house. You hear the woman who say?
That's all I speaking about.
The woman said she went to teach food card Friday to go and get and no money in the food card.
Google self said that he was observing all protocol, but he still got it. So observing all protocol doesn't make you immune to the disease.
Yeah. So it has some people who was observing protocols all the time and gone all day Friday and get and they could get it.
It's one slip up.
Yeah.
One fall, one shippiness, one time that you get into the taxi and then you hold the handle, it reach on your hand, you reach home, you unpacking the bag so fast because you're done frustrated from a whole day. Bam! You rub your face.
You forget to wash your hand.
You forget to wash your hand.
Yeah.
Because you say, I'll just unpack the grocery and run in the bathroom.
Yep.
It's one.
So that would make the analogy flaw. And if I try to explain him, it's
flawed.
The weekend the lockdown weekend really didn't make no sense. It could allow, to just continue.
Okay,
if you're afraid people.
Afraid family gathering, why didn't do it Sunday alone?
Yeah.
Why Saturday?
Yeah.
All the fathers they lie man saying, okay, you don't want that to happen. Why you do it Saturday? Why you going at Labor Day fete?
No, they are going to live at Labor Day festival.
Because I just get vexed with them kind of thing.
So, what argument that Google is bringing to the table is that this
senseless
family.
That P&M argument. I'm not going through that. No, you wanted but I told you you wanted.
No.
When people call you with stupidness, it's stupidness. No, you can laugh on it. I just always say one thing. I just always say one thing, I hold no political allegiance. I have common sense.
Oh, good.
And if a UNC person call you and they talk stupidness, you talk stupidness. And that talk did our P&M stupidness talk.
One family.
But that P&M stupidness talk with Google talk there. One family.
That is what they do. I'll be honest with you. Google does that. Google take one person story and make it like it's everybody doing it. And I want to say, where you getting statistics from? He's doing that right too.
Say that
bring
word
story.
Because I could never say that word.
Statistics.
Bring more of that for me because I could never say that. I was song bad.
Yeah.
Bring numbers.
Yeah, because you will show a video. You will show a video about something that happened to someone. And then want to put everybody in that, people in that category. This is what they're doing. They didn't do this and that, and that why. And to blame the people that they're doing something wrong.
Saying that this family that went through this ordeal is not as sad. Look, right now, we were in the DJ's family.
Yeah, we lost
Rep family. We lost Wasi, who is one close to we. Sad. And then now
we lost Natty.
Selector
Natty. Yeah.
Selector Natty. This
young
is
fella.
A youth man. This is a youth man. Everybody feeling the pain in Sawan environs right now. Youth man, strong, strapped.
Die
COVID.
You understand?
So we understand what we're going through. We understand that we really have to go the extra distance, wash your hand a little more. Ever since I knew how much time I done spray this thing on my hand.
I only laughing because you spend it every minute.
I hold in my own phone alone. I alone hold in my phone and
I you feel like
when I reach in here, what I do?
Spray on everything. You spray on the whole place.
Thank you. And not to say, saying that somebody in here have COVID.
Have COVID, no. And this is just it. I don't think people, they see they have intention. You see the problem is, right, they sell that blame the people for so long that when the government drop the ball, they still want to blame the people.
Blame the people? So what?
Imagine they're coming out and saying, okay, we already dropped the ball.
So you wouldn't look bad? So you expect to live the perfect life? For what? Everybody makes mistake, heavy. Since you small, your mother talking to you.
Of course.
And you're a big man now and you still do something and your mother will still have to come and say heavy.
Yep.
So you not adult enough to know that you do something wrong yet, Heavy? It is human nature to make mistakes, brother.
Yeah, this is why we cannot say, all right, they complain, but look, people breaking the curfew. 500 people break the curfew. 500 people is less than zero. If you have 1.5 million people, that's less than 0.00000.0%.
You don't even know what is the circumstances. If it had 10 people that break that on the rum, okay, it died 10 stupid people. So blame Trinidad and
the whole of Trinidad, no, the whole Trinidad had to get blamed because 10 people break curfew or 100 people break curfew.
I used to sit down right here and say to Heavy, he's talking stupidness when he say, don't blame the people, because there was a point in time the people was to blame. There was a point in time the people was to blame because the people was at a majority on the street.
Was it a majority? Yeah.
Was on the street I'm speaking about, not in the houses.
Yeah.
On the street they were doing the wrong thing at a majority, and I was trying to stay Heavy, but on the street, every day when you walk in,
everybody
that person there at that time was at the majority was breaking the rules, so I said war Heavy. Now with the numbers skyrocket, people dying by the 15 and 16 and 12 and all kind of numbers every day.
People not taking no chances.
People are more precautious about it now. Sorry, they are more precautious about it, right? And people, I am really seeing a big change, huge change in people behavior towards the COVID, right? Huge.
People even going out and line up for vaccines.
Right. Look at it. I passed by the Savannah Friday.
You see people?
You see people by that Savannah?
For vaccine.
You see people by that Savannah.
And the thing is, if we line up and breaking all the rules to get the vaccine and to get food and all kind of thing, we have to come up with some better measure than that. TC, that's what we're saying, you know. Because the people are who responsible for this now is who in the scene.
I am
it's no longer the people because come on.
Vex with me.
Let's use on the phone lines.
All you could say all you want.
Before the press conference, we take some calls before the press conference start.
Vex with me, all you could say what all you want. The only people right now is jackassing the thing is the decision makers. They are really doing it. They need to take their time before they make their decisions. You understand?
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon, welcome. Hello, good afternoon, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. What I observe when they were Google today, I think, well, the way how we explain that, I think that they should open up the place because they can get it any time anyway.
Thank you.
That such a time, they can just get it any time.
He said you cannot think the two. They are two different things. But then if it's two different things.
The way what you saying there, that means you can get that any time. Because it come like if the road look like if the man contract it from the ice cream man and carry it home and get everybody it. So it's not
he's saying that he's trying to say the man didn't really get by the ice cream man, but he at the family gathering.
What you say? No, what you say? Why you say? Because of the family gathering, it's shared with 3 people.
Yeah.
And 3 people, guys. So that means
somebody in the family thinking that it's somebody else or somebody else in the family.
Right.
But you had the whole country locked down, so it's better you open back the country.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The next thing what Mr. Bego say, I think that woman who's talking about was a homeless woman, eh?
Or the woman who the police locked up.
Yeah, she was in a car, homeless. Right? The next thing what I think for myself, I think I have a feeling that the reason why they're doing all them things is because they want people to get this accustomed to holidays, Father's Day, all them different things. That is why they come yesterday's a holiday. Don't get accustomed to doing nothing. Because it's supposed to have Labor Day march and everything. Tomorrow is Father's Day, don't get accustomed. Be disaccustomed to church, disaccustomed to holidays, religious, everybody, everything. That's what I think. That is why you're doing this thing here. Because most of the time when you do something here and you think, can you see alone? When you check it out, everything will be going on all over the world. So like when they send out the people to get the vaccine and they say, oh, just walk in. When we say, can you see alone? When I check out on Facebook where they're selling different things all over the place, they have people lining up all over. So when you think them doing nothing by themselves and fluffing up the chest and feet, they're doing things. They're getting orders out there to do things. That's what I feel like.
All right, man, thanks.
All right, brother, thank you.
I just don't understand I don't understand it. I'm telling you, I really don't understand it.
See if I can call in.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, President, good afternoon. VNTC again. That's someone from Digo here.
Yes.
I listening to the analogy was now being brought. And it's sad. But as I say, I listen to the back and forth with people comment. Now, I'm going through my phone here, and I'm watching that they say that they locked up 3 police officers from Western Division or something so concerning something they tried to do in Southern Division with some drug laws or some drug-related something.
Yeah.
Now, other parts of the world, they would have put these 3 police officers past cases into disrepute because you are not a credible workman, because you were doing wrong. So I don't know if it is all you could take a look into that.
Yeah, I was saying that on the I don't have all the information. We don't have all the information on it. That's why we didn't speak on it.
I don't too. So that is what I'm saying. I don't know if all you could look into that, because other parts of the world, if you get locked up depending as an officer, what you get charged for. 3 officers, because let me put aside all the rest of police shooting it hard and killing because the police always right. They kill somebody, bullet wound to the back, they right. The person shoot at them while running. All these things we understand. But when we go in and do a conform on the whole system where that is concerned, because that's showing now you is not a credible police officer. So how many things prior to that you may have done to innocent people? So I'm now watching it and it just came to me that, you know, even these things like these is things important that we should be addressing.
Yeah, man. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Every people ain't gonna like all you know.
You know.
I'll say one.
They doesn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a PNM party card.
And they say we too real for them.
I never had a UNC ID card. If you say, Rowley, all them Indian glad with you. If you say, Kamala sign up enough, all them Indian with you. It's looking about your opposition leader, and listen. I want all of it to know the energy. Then people living good. And they don't really care about us. And if people that really should show us some kind of concern is the PNM government. And not blank. It's the black prime minister there. Black like me. I proud to be black. I support everybody in the market. Anybody goes, vendors, anybody, whether they East Indian, African, Indian, I support them. But something naturally wrong with us. Something wrong with Rowley. Something wrong with this Innsmouth. I want fellas on the beat him. To walk down the beat him and gun in hand. I want plenty, you know. I want to get gun. Either 1 or 2, or what if I get 6 or 7. Because fish show lines on the hands are talking about the honorable. Now they give me honorable, oh God, it better be cut. It better be cut on their band from the show. I'm talking about fish show lines. Not here, that
All right, Anderson. Go ahead and make your point now.
All right. And let me finish. I want fellas on the beat them to walk down and beat them with guns in hand.
Nah, Anderson. Anderson, be responsible, please.
All right.
Don't let me have to cut you off. Be responsible.
All right.
Going there.
So John, I saw 6 to 7 fellas walking with guns in hand. He saw it on Saturday or sometime in the week, but he came Saturday to tell them about Bazaar Street. They could come in the office on the Monday. And they deserve a chance. The Minister of National Security of Trinidad and Tobago, our great twin island, he said they deserve a chance. You know what young fellas in Beaton, Lamantel and revivers in Trinidad and Tobago deserve a chance, and they wasn't walking with no gun. But them was walking with a gun. And when he leave for my Sunday, he said Sunday is the brother. Sunday brother them is over. Over live on the street become. Sunday brother in the street. Sunday grandmother is Miss Marjorie. his grandfather name is Mr. Stecco. Heinz, Sunday, not your brother. None of them brothers are working on it, not your brother, nor your son. Your son should be the children of Trinidad and Tobago, only boy children, especially of Lavantil and Movan environment. But you want to get him a chance. Richard Master, but should you water, you wanted to give you a chance. He said he was guilty, he might charge him 300, but he might say so nice. She charged him 300 and she marked 200. We say custody out of 100 and something people, but they recognize my voice. He deserves a chance, I deserve 7 days in jail. No matter what I cut. But I'll say Privy Council, and only judge listen, the only judge I'm going to shake it afternoon. I listen to a very good program. Continue listening. Heavy?
All right, brother.
Them fellas are walking a gun, they deserve a chance.
All right, Anderson.
I mean, I don't think it's a press conference today.
You don't think it's a press conference today? Can we look in for it and we not seen it?
No.
Yeah, boy. Can somebody tell us whether or not if the press conference is really happening today? Let us know.
It must have gone up already.
Yeah, because it's done 2:25. Let me see. Press conference at 2:30, yeah, man.
Yeah, they're saying it, but I'm not seeing anything. Hi, good afternoon, welcome.
Hey, Mr. Heavy and Mr. TC. I go there to you, brothers.
Yes, brother.
No, the Minister of Security, sorry for us going on to them, watch out. It's a strategy. No, in order to get rid of brothers killing each other, come in, let me talk in the office. I mean, we have to watch it so too, because we have to find a way for we to stop killing one another.
Yeah, I understand.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it could be a strategy. You understand? You want to talk to them, you understand? And by talking to them, you'll get things he will buy and sell. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're going to do we just gotta watch the days to come what's happening. You understand? And then we could talk about it. But at the end of the day, Heavy, they were saying $1,000 for every house. No. The $22 billion was for COVID. They could have given each house of 200,000 on, so we will rock back because I will not. I'm telling you, these are the things.
Not 200,000. Each house can get 20,000.
Huh?
If it's how much billion is it?
22 billion.
22 billion. Each house can get 20,000.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, each house can get $20,000 with the 22 billion.
The ball do this to the money, do that to the money. $22 billion. We didn't have no COVID. We had about 5 patients or 6 or whatever. When did lockdown get that? I mean, this is a serious thing. I know people go support the party.
What did they with the money call? If they can't even put money on food cards, so people take a food card.
I vote for PNM, but when support arise, we have to address it.
Yeah, address it.
You understand? We have to address these things. You know?
You can't toe the line on these things, you see. It's life and death.
They're using this COVID to do all kind of stupidness. The leaders on them, all over the world. That's serious thing. It's how making the right decision. You understand? A decision like you pay no rent. That is very good. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, people saying the landlord don't have to pay their income, whatever. But from jumpstart, I've been collecting money. Well, we know, looking for a flat salary, rent, groceries, bills, and we end up with passage alone. Them collecting rent right through, the pay piece side on the loan, and the rest going to the banks. We have to, it's a lot of, we have to watch on, we must stop coming on the radio and talking all this out of time talk. We have to get serious in this life. And if we don't get serious now about what's happening, we'll never get serious again. My friend, have a good day.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. You find it?
I just got a link.
Somebody send the link for you?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up here now. Online, YouTube, online. Check this one.
Yeah. Yeah, press conference.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna start.
And that is why me and Google remain friends. So I would say thank you very much to Google for sending the link for me. Yeah, for the press conference. Thanks, Google. We'll remain friends forever. No, I'm telling you that and we are friends. You could say what? Me and Google is friends. You understand? He just can't sell me no dreams. I'm not buying. I don't have money. You understand?
So people, we are about to head to the press conference.
It didn't start yet.
It didn't start yet?
No, it didn't start yet. So we could take some phone calls until
okay.
Until it starts, you understand? Until it starts, we could take some phone calls. As soon as it starts, we would be heading across to the press conference right here on the street 919 FM, where we keep you informed, entertained, and responsible in our words, thoughts, and even our dreams. All right? So you can continue to call us. I was looking for the press conference there, so we are up and running. Continue to call us until then. It is past the hour right now, and I see the phone lines are still going crazy. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome.
Well, Mr. Good afternoon to you, TC. Good afternoon to you, Evie.
Yes, King D. What's up?
I am cool, man. I'm cool. I'm just relaxing. Taking in the nice, cool weather. Not waiting for the press conference at all because I'm watching Netflix. I'm not going to listen to the press conference today.
Why?
One day.
You are a person that always informs, so you have to listen to the press conference and what.
No. I for that man every Saturday it jackassing in the scene at me. I can't listen to this. I don't post carry them to the happy to or you turn on your TV and watch on Netflix because you're turning over and over and over and over. What is the authority?
It can't even have from midnight tonight again. From midnight tonight get shorty circle.
Yeah.
Maybe that we get like look up. I get some good news today. The numbers going down and things going back up.
So is there anything you think that will change in the press conference? And I want you to take off your political hat and answer this question. Do you think that we could look out for some good comments in this press conference?
No good news. No good news. You're going to talk about
You can't talk about
Wasa. Or people rush to Wasa. You're going to talk about how. Yes, what you mention talk about.
He may mention it, but I don't think that's the press conference about it. He may mention it, but I don't think so.
What he come to the country every Saturday, so people start to get fed up on the
I think he's coming to tell the country that they're going to stop the rental of the buildings and they're going to reduce their salary and they're going to cut their perks and the board members of the state boards are going to cut their salary and we're going to put money on people's food cards and the relief grant is going to be relieved tomorrow.
The press conference is up. The press conference is up, Kingsley. So see you next week Saturday. Godspeed.
Yes, man. No problem, man. Have a nice time. Yes, man.
Yeah. All right. To all the fathers on the outside, including my good friend Heavy Duty, have a great Father's Day tomorrow. Inside, stay inside, and you may have a little drink there, sip on something, do what you have to, but don't come out. All right?
All right.
All right, everybody. Press conference.
We have with us our health team and the Minister of Health, and I would like to ask at this stage, Dr. Paraswam, CMO, to come and take us through our normal routine.
Good afternoon, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Ministers, colleagues, members of the media, members of the viewing and listening public. So reporting as of the 18th of June 2021, total tests done at the public and private facilities now stand at 215,999. Over the last 24 hours, we would have reported 227 new positive cases, taking our total since March 12, 2020 to 30,183. Total recovered patients thus far, 20,892. Total active cases have gone down to 8,578. Whole persons in home isolation as a proportion, 7,758. Those in hospital remain around 450 for quite a while, now at 452. Deaths are now at 713. Those in step down at 141, state quarantine 211. And total persons vaccinated with your first dose of both either Sinopharm or AstraZeneca, 173,878. Those fully vaccinated, 36,620. We'll have Dr. Hines take us through the EPI update, followed by Dr. Richards today. So, Dr. Hines.
Thank you, CMO. Honorable Prime Minister, honorable ministers, colleagues, members of the media, members of the viewing and listening public. The EPI update for the data as of June 18th is as follows. We see here the epidemic curve, which has tracked from about the late July 2020 all the way through to the current date, daily cases as a date of swab. We see in this graph that over to the right-hand side where we see the colorful bars, the tallest ones of those are the ones that we see around that middle of May, that second to third week of May, and we've seen progressively shorter bars as we move towards the right into that blue section, which represents the cases swabbed in the month of June. So we are looking at what seems to be something of a downward trend in the month of June with respect to the number of cases that have been swabbed and have turned up positive. When we aggregate or pull those swabs together by week, what we call epidemiologic week or epi week for short, we see same distribution of colors representing the same time periods. And those gold bars for May being the tallest, we saw that we moved progressively upwards in increasing percentages for some time until we got to week 21, and then from week 21 come forward for the last 3 weeks, we've seen a decrease, small decreases at first, and hopefully decreases that will continue to increase in size. So right now we're looking at week 24, which isn't yet complete, but preliminary data would put our decrease between week 23 and week 24 around 7% or 6 point something percent. And that downward trend, that continued downward trend over the last 3 weeks or so is an indication that we are seeing some slowing in the number of new cases being diagnosed, and that the measures that we've been implementing and adhering to are having some effect. Looking at the data gathered on a monthly basis, we see basically the same pattern, highlighting again beyond the heights of the bars that that background or salmon-colored area represents the percentage positivity, meaning the number of positive COVID samples out of every 100 tests that we do. And that is coming down somewhat, so I'm actually going to go backwards. Just to look at the week 23 and 24, we're seeing that we're down in those weeks to 32 to 30% just about positivity. And overall for the entire period of June so far, that overall positivity has been about 35%, coming down from nearly 43% in the month of May. So again, that's an indication of some decrease in viral circulation. Looking at the demographics, the demographic data basically remains as it has, with the majority of the cases being in that 25 to 49-year-old age group and the 50-50 division of male and female positives. We are seeing that slight swing, so to speak, of males being less than 75% now of the total number of deaths. They're now around 60%, and the females have taken up that other 40%. And the deaths in the over 60 age group remain the vast majority. But we do note two things. Number one, deaths have occurred in the under 60 age group. And number two, while people who have passed on have, in the majority, more than 75% of those people who passed on had comorbidities, there were some that did not. So that's a cause for everybody to be cautious. Once you become infected, you need to monitor yourself very carefully. Looking at those projections that we'd been making, looking at the speed of increase that we were seeing at the end of April, that green line that goes upwards, it was that sort of trajectory that we were on at the end of April prior to the implementation of a lot of the more stringent measures. Those measures were implemented. We saw that there was a decrease in the number of cases or the rate of accumulation. We looked again at a projection around the middle of May prior to the SOE itself, but the other big restrictions being in place. That's the orange line that we see, and that's the trajectory we would have been on. Again, that has we have deviated from that and decreased. The current grey extension that we're seeing beyond the bars is sort of the projected level or direction that we're going in with the decreasing daily numbers of cases. And we're hoping that we maintain that downward curve now, as that would indicate that we have a continuation of the decrease in daily positives. And that brings me to the end of the EPI update. I'm going to turn you over to Dr. Richards for the clinical hospital update.
Good afternoon to the Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Ministers of Health, Energy, and the Office of the Prime Minister. This afternoon, good afternoon again to the members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, members of our listening and viewing population. This afternoon, I would like to present a status update on the hospitals in the parallel healthcare system. And of course, at now, there are 16 institutions under the parallel healthcare system to care for persons who are ill with COVID-19. There are 19 centers in Trinidad and out of these 16, there are 14 centers in Trinidad and 2 in Tobago, and there are 9 hospitals and 7 step-down facilities for recovering patients. The information provided this afternoon is as of 8 a.m. on the 19th of June 2021. This graph demonstrates the rolling average, and as of today, the rolling average is at 252. Now, the rolling average is the average number of positive cases over the last 7 days, and it serves as a guide to the number of persons who really require care. So we expect that if the rolling average is decreasing, less persons would require care. I'd like you to pay attention to the 26th of May, because on or around this number, the rolling average peaked. And then we saw a very slow decline. And again, the key word here would be a slow decrease. And we've noticed that consistently over the past 3 weeks. This is a graph that demonstrates the the number of cases in terms of the admissions, as well as the number of admissions and discharges. Now, this graph demonstrates that over the last week, the gap between admissions and discharges is decreasing or is narrowing. That is relevant because it means that there are less extra patients in the parallel healthcare system during last week versus this week. So the parallel healthcare system is really less burdened this week as opposed to last week. And I'll demonstrate why we noticed that trend. So over the past month, you would have noticed an increasing number of admissions. And this increasing number of admissions was not just attributed or due to an increasing number of cases, but it was due to the increasing number of facilities with resources such as beds and nurses and ventilators that were being operationalized across the parallel healthcare system. Now, last week, we noticed a large gap, and this was demonstrated, of 187 extra patients over the week versus this week where there are 152 extra patients. Now, the reason that we've seen a decline last week to this week from 187 to 152 is because, as you can see here, there were more patients that were discharged in terms of that proportion. Now, of course, that would indicate patients who are well. The net effect, again, of this admissions and discharges equation is a reduced burden on the parallel healthcare system as compared to last week. We are now looking at the number or the actual number of COVID positive patients that are hospitalized in the parallel healthcare system. And yet again, I would like to draw your attention to on or about the 25th to 28th of May, where we saw a peak, just over 600 patients in total, and then a flattening or plateauing off. So this graph demonstrates not just the hospital. When we say hospitalized, we speak about 16 centers, 9 hospitals, and 7 step-down facilities. And the total number of patients as of today is 590. Now, the total number of patients ranged over the past 2 weeks, from the past few months, from basically 570 to 638. And that is a very narrow window in terms of the spread across 16 facilities. Now, what would be important to note is if we separated the patients in hospital, who are the more ill patients requiring a higher level of care, more nurses, more doctors, oxygen care, that number is greater compared to those who are recovering. So we still have a larger proportion or larger number of sick patients. Today it's 449, and over the past 3 weeks, it went from 428 to 494. Now, this is a percentage graph, and I'd like to explain it because the occupancy is actually a measure of the total number of hospital beds that are occupied over the total number of hospital beds that are available and resourced. The occupancy is the measure of the ability of the parallel healthcare system to care for COVID-19 patients. And over the past 2 months, we have added beds and we've added institutions to care for these patients. So the actual availability of beds has increased. Now in Trinidad and Tobago, based on our population, the bed availability is about 90%. What we can note on or about that week with the 26th to 28th is that the overall occupancy, again, is slowly declining. There has been a very slow trend if we look at the general curve. And today, our overall occupancy is actually 57%, and over the last 3 weeks, it was between 57 to 64%, so slow decline. If we separate the number of persons that need care over the beds we have in Trinidad and Tobago, we will notice that the overall occupancy as of today is 60%. So basically, 6 out of 10 beds in the entire system are being occupied. The average over the last 3 weeks was 62%, which is close to what we've noticed in Trinidad, and it dipped at 57%. Now, there are 7 hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago that are responsible for the care of the critically ill and more sick patients, as we would say. So these are patients that require oxygen therapy, ventilators in the intensive care unit and the high dependency unit. They require a higher number of nurses managing them, and again, oxygen therapy via various number of means. So in week 21, which was on or about May 31st or so, we would notice that an additional bar has been added, and that's when we added the Point Fortin Hospital, which had a bed capacity of approximately 75 beds, which included HDU and ICU, 71 ward beds, and 4 ICU or HDU beds. So you'll see an additional hospital added there, which meant the number of beds available and the capacity increased. Now, what you would notice is that we've generally been seeing 4 out of 7 of the hospitals above the critical zone of 75%. And it again demonstrates that there is a larger number or proportion of more sick patients, and these hospitals are more filled. Now, when we look at the 7 step-down facilities, as of this morning, only one of the 7 step-down facilities is above the 75% threshold. So the number of recovering patients is still lagging behind the number of actual ill patients. This looks at the occupancy overall, which is the number of persons in each level of care. And we have what is called, or I've identified as level 1 care, which are the patients who are not well, they require observation and require to be in the hospital. And then we have what is called level 2 care, which Dr. Trotman and my colleagues always speak about, a high dependency unit care, where that patient is stepped up to receive oxygen, and they have greater nurses, etc. Level 3 is the most resource demanding level of care, which is an intensive care where they are ventilated, they require dialysis, and so on. And again, what we are noticing here is that the overall ward occupancy, where we initially had the greatest demand for beds and added hospitals, has again had that downward trend from or about the 27th or 28th of May. So I'd like you to remember that date because that's when we started seeing a curve, and it corresponds to what Dr. Hines would have been speaking about. Now, the average ward occupancy, which is the largest number of beds, is 55%. So about half of our available ward beds are now filled in Trinidad, as opposed to what we saw at one point when we were speaking about, number of bed days. Now, as far as intensive care units and high dependency units, the intensive care unit ratio or percentage is at 76% today, while the high dependency unit percentage is at 100%. Now, I'd like to make it clear that it does not mean that we have no more beds. I'd like to really reiterate that it means as of today, we can actually transition between ICU and HDU, and we do have the available resources in terms of ventilators and the consumables and monitors to actually increase, which is what we've been doing. We've been converting ward beds to ICU and HDU beds based on the demand, with that supply and demand curve. One of the reasons that we instituted the parallel healthcare system on March 12, 2020, was to preserve the integrity of what is called the traditional healthcare system. That is a healthcare system that takes care of persons who do not have COVID, our grandmother who has hypertension and diabetes, our wife who is pregnant. We did not want the parallel healthcare system to overwhelm the traditional healthcare system, because then people would have died not just of COVID, but of other preventable conditions. Now, I'm looking here and referring to the accident and emergency departments in the traditional healthcare system by the RHA. So ERHA would be Eastern RHA, which covers the Granby to Mayaro area, Northwest RHA, generally the Port of Spain area, the Southwest RHA from Freeport down into the Southern Peninsula, and the North Central RHA, which really looks at the East-West corridor. Now, at each RHA, there are different A&Es, or accident and emergencies. And we have noticed that on or around the 5th of June, there has been a plateauing or a general decrease in the number of persons in the accident and emergency at 8 a.m. in the morning, which tends to be the highest number from overnight cases, awaiting transfers. And this is a promising trend. We continue to see North Central, which is the traditional area that persons would go to for COVID treatment and has a high population, somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 25 persons every morning across the Arima District Health Facility, the Chaguanas Health Facility, and the Accident and Emergency at Port of Spain General and St. James Medical Center. It's interesting to note and noteworthy that the Southwest RHA, which has a catchment population of about 600,000, has been able to maintain a general decline. There was an uptick yesterday, which is an anomaly, but generally they have been able to have less than 10 patients across the accident and emergency centers in terms of the San Fernando General Hospital, Point Fortin, and Couva. Northwest is still somewhere in an intermediate number with an average of about 20, and Eastern, which is a smaller RHA, is in the vicinity of about 5 in terms of average per day. So we are seeing less burden on the traditional healthcare system, because of course in the accident and emergency room, you would have to separate your staff and separate physical space to manage these COVID-19 patients while we are waiting on an ambulance transfer. Another area we look at in terms of a precursor indicator would be the ambulance system. Of course, the national ambulance system that we use would be the GMRTT system. And at one point, we were noticing that about 50% of the available ambulances were carrying COVID patients. That is patients who came from their home to the A&E between the accident and emergency and the Couva Hospital or any other hospital, and so on. Now that, I'd like to reiterate here that it is not we're not saying that we allocated 50%. It means that when we look at the total number of trips per day, 5 out of 10 ended up being COVID transports. Again, over the last week, we've seen a variable trend, but if we look, there's again a very slow decline down from the 50% to the 40 to about 30% on average. So 3 out of 10 transfers nationally on a daily basis to 4 out of 10 transfers are now due to COVID-19 patients who are ill. Now, the turnaround time, that is the time from when a patient makes a call for the ambulance service, and they are collected and taken to the hospital and assessed in the accident and emergency and dropped off, has decreased and is stabilizing. And that is tied to a decreasing number of ill patients and active cases at home. Again, it's been a very slow decline. We are in the vicinity of about 150 minutes. This may seem long, but a COVID transport takes significantly longer than a normal transport because of the level of sanitization, the use of personal protective equipment, and other resources. Again, COVID patients require much more significant resources than patients in the parallel healthcare system. And so we need to really be stringent in terms of how we manage ourselves and manage these patients. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, we have noticed a slow decline, and we must not be prematurely comforted by this decline. The Ministry of Health continues to do all in our part to save lives, both in the traditional healthcare system as well as the parallel healthcare system. We continue to increase beds and allocate beds and ensure that a level of operational efficiency is managed. But you, Trinidad and Tobago, need to help us. How do you help us? We continue with the 3 W's. We continue to wear your mask. We continue to wash your hands and watch our distance. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a happy Labor Day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richards. Minister Dialsing will now take us through the information with respect to the vaccination program and how we're doing there.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. Good afternoon to Minister Young, Chief Medical Officer, and his medical team.
Hey, we see
Good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen of the media and the viewing and listening public, wherever you are. Happy Labor Day to all.
We run the block.
So my task this afternoon is to walk you through the up-to-date figures as it relates to the vaccination program.
Oh my Lord, can we come and do it too? You take me one time.
Let's go. The total on those agencies and other agencies, which will be the private sector that we are partnering with, Supermarket Association, Manufacturers Association, construction, bankers. On Thursday, we did 1,900 approximately in the banking sector. Yesterday, we did approximately 1,900 again in the private security sector. So the total first dose to date, as of last night, 176,849 across all of those 5 RHAs and 2 agencies. Total second dose to date across the RHAs. The second dosing has not started yet in the other agencies. That will depend on the time lapse between first dose and second dose. But the total second dose to date, 39,142. You may recall when we started the second dose national rollout on June the 7th, at that time it was 1,179, which represented those healthcare workers who got their first shots back in February. So between June 7th to now, we have moved from 1,179 to 39,142. The second slide, right, shows you what our initial targets look like. So goal 1, which can change as we get in more and more vaccines, was to have 188,900 persons fully vaccinated by July 31st, 2021. Fully vaccinated means you must have your 2 shots, whether it's the AstraZeneca or the Sinopharm. So that's the horizontal purple line. That's our initial target. The green line, which is moving close to it, represents the 176,849 who have received their first dose. So we are on target for the first dose to meet that horizontal purple line in a very short space of time. The aquamarinish bluish line, I hope I got the color right, is the 39,142 second dose. What will happen to this line? It will get more and more upright, more and more vertical as we start to vaccinate more and more people with their second dose, pending 8 weeks after they got their AstraZeneca doses or 3 weeks after they got the Sinopharm doses. So the area of focus now is not only on first dose, but really getting that aquamarine line to actually get vertical and meet up with the horizontal purple line, and that will give us our first goal of 188,900 fully vaccinated people. Just to bring the national population up to date on our activities for the last week, when we were focusing on persons 65 and over. And we started the mobile DHV unit visits to homes for the aged. Well, continued it really. In Tobago, and speaking to my colleague this morning, the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Services, they were able to do 37 persons this week. But the Honorable Tracy Davison Celestine has asked me to make a particular plea on national TV today that the take-up is particularly low in Tobago. They are not getting the required consent from the guardians, legal guardians, or children of the elderly in Tobago. So she has asked me to make a particular plea this afternoon for those elderlies in the homes in Tobago, the long-stay homes, that they need the consent to vaccinate the elderly in Tobago. In Trinidad, with the program continuing with the elderly homes, we have been able to do 388 for this week alone. So for this week, between Trinidad and Tobago, we have been able to do 425 elderly, which isn't a bad place to be. With the over 65 program, which we started this week, I will now give you the figures for that program. This is started on Wednesday, so the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday figures. Eastern RHA would have done 1,011. North Central RHA, 1,410. Northwest RHA, 1,001. And Southwest RHA, which is the biggest RHA in terms of population, as you heard, is over 600,000 persons, 1,833. So with the over 65 program this week, we have been able to do 5,255 across the 4 RHAs in Trinidad. So that is where we are with the vaccination program. We are urging all persons, and the program is going particularly well. I'm getting very good reports that people are receiving their calls for their second shots, but the call still goes out. When you get your call for your second shot, you are only considered fully vaccinated when you have your second shot. So please, ladies and gentlemen, make use of the second shot at the facilities you are being called to. Okay? Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Dayal Singh. I just want to re-emphasize and clarify something with respect to the data about the target that we are aiming at. And he said that we had that horizontal line as to where we want to be. That line where we aim to vaccinate 188,900 persons by that time is entirely controlled, not by any target that we had set for the requirement to vaccinate. It was set by the vaccines that we had been able to access. So that 188,900 represents 377,000 doses. That's the vaccine that we have been able to get our hands on from all sources during the period which was covered by the vaccination. However, as we get more vaccines, that target will change depending on how many more vaccine doses we get. So I want to make that very clear. That figure is not a figure cast in stone, and it wasn't set by us as any requirement. The requirement is different, and I want to get to that now because I'm seeing some conversations developing, and I would like to make sure that the government's position is very clear from the very beginning, the policy of the government of Trinidad and Tobago has been made very clear from this podium and elsewhere that we will respond to this virus, the novel coronavirus, based on our understanding of the science of how human beings are affected by it and how human beings should respond to it. We will respond through the science. That's the government policy number one. That took us to the department that has the responsibility for receiving that information, advising the government, and getting the population to respond based on the science. Arising out of that understanding, the whole world, the scientific population of the whole world, of course there will be persons who are scientists who don't agree. Some people still believe that the world is flat, and some believe that there's hell below and heaven above. But the vast majority of scientists in the world have said that what the human population in whatever nation you may reside, what you're required to do is to get vaccinated. You may recall that before we had news of a vaccine that was efficacious, one that was affecting the virus in our body, getting a response, there was a pretty widespread element of hopelessness as to how do we get out of this situation from this virus that was rampaging across the world. And many of you will have visual memories of what was happening with respect to death and sickness and so on. Vaccination became the objective. Get the population vaccinated, and to do that, scientists around the world were asked to get a vaccine or vaccines. And of course, the gene sequencing was done in many areas, and the very first notice we got was at Oxford University, and others had got it done, and soon after others had got it done. The bottom line is, vaccination is the objective. And then we got into the phase of access to the vaccines. As the vaccines were given emergency approval authorization, there was now a rush to get your hands on the vaccine. Many people around the world have not yet got their hands on many vaccines. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have got our hands on approximately 377,000 vaccines. That's what we got our hands on. It is not that we got other vaccines and they're hiding somewhere, or we have more to come and we didn't get it and so on. With our best effort from day one, making our best effort, so far we have been able to get our hands on that figure, just under 380,000 vaccines, and they have been utilized in the way the minister has described. And because it's a two-dose arrangement, the management of that is what you would have seen, and you can't just give the second dose the day after the first dose. Depending on the brand of the vaccine, you have to wait for a particular period between the first dose and the second dose, and that's what you've been hearing there about. Now, once the vaccine science became known to the world and vaccine became put into use, the third policy of the government was to use vaccines that have been given at least emergency use authorization by the World Health Organization. That is the body that has advised us on all the vaccines that you've been using, because this vaccine for this virus is nothing new process-wise. It is new with respect to the actual item that is in the vaccine. But vaccination and the receipt and use of vaccines in this population has been something that was common amongst us, particularly for children and of course for adult travelers. Those of you who would have traveled would have known that you would have had to have your yellow fever vaccine or your hepatitis vaccine or diphtheria for children and so on. And of course, we were not as well educated as we are now, and we didn't have social media and so on and so on, and therefore the brand and the shape of the bottle and all of those things didn't matter. You took your child to the community center, got vaccinated, and in fact, to go into schools, there was a requirement, a forced requirement, that children had to be vaccinated to come into the school population, not only for the protection of those children, but for the protection of others. So therefore, all of you who are parents or guardians of small children, or parents who give birth, would know that within weeks of the child being born, there are certain vaccination regimes that take place. So our national policy was that as soon as WHO gives its stamp of approval, that comes in two forms. One, an emergency use authorization, which is proceed in emergency, and later on, as you get more and more comfortable with it, a blanket approval, which means that it could be on the market as an open market product. And that's where we are now with respect to getting and using some vaccine, small numbers, because we would love to have got more vaccines, but for the nth time, they aren't available. So what I did was to ask the leaders in this country, whoever you are, wherever you are, and I'm going to do it again today, ask the leaders, whether it's a cricket club, a religious body, or whatever, the national policy is to get vaccinated, and you would do well to help us with that by encouraging and asking your flock, whoever they might be, to get vaccinated. That is against the policy that the vaccination program is voluntary. So we need not go off in any tangent about anybody forcing anybody to be vaccinated. It is that since we have followed the science and followed it through the authorization of the WHO, the product that we're going to use, and we understand that to manage and live with this virus with some element of success, that vaccination is the way to go. The national policy is to encourage people to get vaccinated. We know that there are people out there for one reason or the other who don't want to get vaccinated. But what I'm not going to get involved in is any discussion about, especially if it's contrived, about the people who are not going to get vaccinated, other than to convince them that there's a science behind this and there's a requirement for the national population to treat with this virus. And that requirement is to get as many people as possible vaccinated, and that is called herd immunity, meaning that a large number of people in any population is vaccinated, and therefore you get the upper hand of the virus with respect to its propagation in the population. I would not be surprised if in the coming days or weeks or months that I or the government or whoever else is be accused of calling human beings cattle, because the word that we're using is herd immunity. And of course, you know from primary school that a herd is a herd of cattle or a herd of buffaloes, whatever the case might be. Because people look for all kinds of reasons to get in on the act of trying to make an argument about something. But from national policy standpoint, nobody is forcing anybody to use this vaccine. But we're saying that you have to regard every other person in the protocols as either carrying the virus or you yourself carrying it. And that's why we have these wearing of face masks and the distancing and the hygiene restrictions and so on. So it's important to have that, because we may find ourselves going down a road missing the main reaction from the population. And that reaction has to be, once we get the vaccines that we have been striving for and looking for, get vaccinated. The government policy does not go beyond that at this time. Get vaccinated. I'm very pleased. I have seen leaders like Archbishop Gordon asking his flock and the national population to try to get to this target. I've seen Maulana Soleimani and other leaders, and I've also seen other leaders making different arguments, and I am not really hoping that the national population would benefit from increased inflows of vaccines, and we will vaccinate and get the benefit of that, because so far the reports from around the world is that those populations that have managed to get vaccinated have got benefits from it. That is not to say that new difficulties have not arisen. We have never said that you get vaccinated and it's going to cure you or prevent you from getting COVID, or if there are variants in the growth of the virus, that you will not have to sometime later on respond to that. Because we've seen in one particular country, which is very heavily vaccinated, they're now fighting a variant which might require the whole population to get revaccinated. That's one side of it. We've seen another population elsewhere that was vaccinated by some of the brands that we're using here with very, very good results. So therefore, we are going to vaccinate and expect to get the benefit of that. So as Prime Minister of the country, following those 3 or 4 policies there, I'm staying with that and I'm asking you, 1, we are science guided. 2, we expected to. We got vaccines in the scientific community. We got some vaccines and we in the market for more. We're vaccinating. And of course, our vaccines are WHO approved for emergency use. And of course, we will then accept, as we must, that we are living with this virus. It is not the intention of the government to keep this population at home unnecessarily for any protracted period of time. We did that to be able to blunt the spread of the virus through our population, which could have and would have had devastating consequences. We've suffered a number of losses of life, 1 being too many, and of course we moved very quickly from low levels to fairly high levels, but this is the pandemic of 2021, and we're hoping to get out of it with the minimum loss of life and of course minimum dislocation. Last week, I did tell you that it was our intention to make certain adjustments, starting with populations, because remember, we are vaccinating by cohorts, section of the population. It's a management tool, and it's also getting the vaccines to those who are most exposed. So those 2 things together, helping us to what little vaccines we got, primarily for those who are most exposed and who need it most, and secondly, use the sectors that we can vaccinate and aim towards getting back to some economic activity and community involvement. And that is what guides this policy of vaccinating by sectors. And also, that allows us to bring in the private sector, which is now very much involved. Private sector involvement in the vaccination program for the vaccines we had in hand has been and continues to be very useful, and will continue so to do as we go forward. Because I said last week, based on what is happening in the international community with vaccine availability, I do not expect that we would have enough vaccines in our hand at any one time to do the simplest and straightforward thing, which is to put it all in the health centers and say, come at your pleasure and get vaccinated. If that happens, we'll be very pleased. But right now, the way we are being able to access vaccines, it appears as though, as I said last week, we will get our vaccines in tranches and we'll manage each tranche into the population in the way that we're doing now and in any improved way. I'm pleased to tell you that after last week, after what happened last week, Wednesday into Thursday into Friday, we did pause. We started on Wednesday, and notwithstanding 1 or 2 hiccups here and there, including a shower of rain here and there, all the reports I've had have been that the system has worked well, and those who were encouraged to come out were given good service, and we think that we have gotten over that, and we now know what we will do going forward as we get new vaccines. What is likely to happen, and I'm saying this now because I know that it is likely to trigger questions and concerns. We don't have any control over what vaccines we get and when. We are still out there trying to get more vaccines. The vaccines that we have in hand now will keep us busy until into early July. But in terms of giving people their first dose, we only have enough vaccines in hand now to keep us busy for the next 2 weeks. Within the next 2 weeks, we would have used up, at the rate at which we're going here, we would have used up all the vaccines that we have in hand for use as first dose, which means that if we don't get a new shipment by the end of the month, we will not have vaccines to give anybody a first dose. And once that is clear, then I don't expect people to come and say, well, why you stop vaccinating? Carry on the vaccination program. You need to vaccinate the population. That is unnecessary. We can only vaccinate with vaccines. So at the end of this month, I expect that every vaccine that we have, which is available for our first dose, would have been utilized. And the earlier, the better. But the vaccination program continues because we have in hand vaccines to give people their second dose. Those people who had already got their first dose would get their second dose. That will take us into about the first 10 days or so of July, mid-July at worst. So by that time, the 377,000 vaccines that we would have had would have been completely used up both in the first and second dose. So we now should keep our eye on the next shipment. There are 2 shipments that are likely to be on the way. One is our third COVAX shipment, which has now, I'm advised this morning, has been delayed again towards the end of...
It will be sometime in July.
Well, sometime in July means the end of July, because that's the outside time. It looks as though sometimes towards the end of July, if there are no further delays from the COVAX end. And ladies and gentlemen, that has nothing to do with the government or the Prime Minister or the Minister of Health. We are no recipients of that. So sometime towards the end of July, which would be, if we say we have used up all that we've had by the second week of July, it means there'd be a little period in between when there's no vaccination going on because we have none for first dose, none for second dose have been done. So we're now waiting for the next shipment. From the COVAX end, it's likely to be towards the end of July. And that is a 33,000 dose, which hopefully doesn't get reduced in the process. So we're looking, and if we get that, that will allow us to vaccinate 16,000 people or thereabouts, and we could then do some first dosing with that. We also are continuing our purchase from China, and we expect that there would be another shipment in July in the order similar to the one we just got, or a little bit more, and we wait until we get the shipment documentation on that, confirmation on that, to tell you more. But that's the other source of vaccine that we have in the pipeline, another shipment of Sinopharm. So if things go according to the plan that has gone so far, we should have 250,000 doses during the month of July to restart the program mid-July going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, that is Trinidad and Tobago's position right now. Additionally, we still are on track with our African Medical Supply Platform expectation, but remember that's an August. That's an August shipment we're looking at. That's not in July. And of course, the fourth prong is the promise from the United States to share their vaccines, and we have not seen anything beyond that so far. We don't know what will come through, and I may add one more caveat. We don't know if we'll qualify based on what yardstick they'll be using for distributing that vaccine. So that is at tier 4. So tier 1 is the COVAX towards, I would say, the third to fourth week of July. Another shipment of Sinopharm middle to end of July. And of course, the African Medical Supply one, Johnson & Johnson, sometime August going forward. And that is our prospect in vaccinating. But in the meantime, as of today, we would have been under a state of emergency for a few weeks. We would have been under interventions of one kind or another for a few more weeks than that. And let's look ahead and see what's the prospect. Based on what I just told you, and based on what Dr. Richards told you about our hospitals and what Dr. Hines told you on our statistical numbers, and of course, most importantly, what Dr. Trotman will tell you when she comes after there, we are now required to take this bull by his horns living with the virus. It is my intention, if there is no significant reversal of our situation, to next weekend, which will be the last weekend in June, what we had promised to do at the beginning of June, we will do, meaning that I did ask you to stay in tightly on weekends, including the weekend which happened to have had in it Labor Day, had nothing to do with any attack on the labor movement. We have one more weekend to do that, staying in. Next weekend, we'll repeat that. That's the weekend of the 25th of June, and hopefully, it is my expectation that that will be the last time we do that under the current arrangements, where we start our curfew on Friday evening at 7 o'clock and go the way we have gone this weekend. So we'll do that again next weekend, and unless something drastically wrong appears, we will then not do it that way. We'll then more than likely go back to the more relaxed curfew arrangement, if that is a good thing. And so therefore the weekend of the 3rd of July, which is the first weekend in July, we should be a little different and go back to what weekends were before this early weekend. Now, in terms of coming out cautiously, the next action that we are likely to take, and I'm using the word likely, is bringing out the construction sector, and I trust by then a significant number of construction workers would have been vaccinated, and so the population of Trinidad and Tobago would see increased movement and exposure from those persons who are in or associated with construction. So it will be the construction sector and its associated business, because, for example, if we bring out the construction sector, we have to open the hardwares. And we also have to open those manufacturers that are making paint and making doors and so, to make sure that things go smoothly. So that is the first group of people who we expect to come out. And next week when we meet, I expect to be able to tell you that construction reopens the following Monday. So you could begin to think and plan along those lines and cooperate to make it operate. If that goes well, that would be our cautious arrival. And then we said to you at an earlier time that we are taking steps to reopen our border with some caution and conditions, and that would take place in the second week of July, right? Somewhere around the second week of July. We are still on track for that. We still expect to be able to do that. Cal and the ministries have worked out the arrangements, and during the coming week, the relevant authorities will tell you what the conditions are, and we are preparing to have scheduled air service into Trinidad and Tobago and operate the managed border. The open border is not a free-for-all. It will be a border which will be open for activities. The most important thing would be there'll be scheduled arrangements, and persons who are vaccinated as against who are not vaccinated would be treated as groups of people with different conditions. And I trust that the conversation that I see developing there, I trust that you understand what is happening outside right now. Even with heavily vaccinated populations, we are not out of the woods yet. You would have heard about the Delta? The Delta variant in the United States and in the UK, which was really the variant that came out of India. We had the India, South Africa, Brazil. We are dealing with that now. So even as we are opening, we have to keep our eyes on that, because we have seen what's happened in other populations, and therefore you will be given guidance by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Transportation, and so on. And of course, after that, the next horizon we'll be looking at, now that the border opening and the construction go together, but they're not linked. It's the same time frame. But remember that these will be two flows of population movement in our society. So we then are going to be so much exposed. We're going to be exposed to the importation of that Delta virus from North America, which is where most of our traffic will be. And of course, we will be exposed by having so many more people out there. And hopefully those people out there would be largely vaccinated or significantly vaccinated, but more importantly, behaving in a responsible way. I must tell you, I am still amazed at how the average person in this country is still not yet behaving responsibly. You are in a line. You don't have to be on top the next person's shoulder to be in the line. You could be 6 or 8 feet away and be in the line and be in the line safely. I've seen some pictures of people coming to the grocery or going to pay their water bill. And because it's a water bill you're going to pay or because you're going to the grocery, you completely forget that there's something that you have to do to save your life. Please don't forget, there's always something that you have to do to save your life. That is primary. Everything else is secondary. Your place in the line is secondary. A line with a crowd that you can't tell who is in front of who is just an unincorporated line. So you have to bear that in mind, especially now that we're saying livelihood is coming close, action for lives. Because remember, 2 things we have to do, livelihood and lives. The last month, lives to paramountcy. Livelihood is going to join you. We are taking more risks, and therefore we expect greater cooperation while we source more vaccines and vaccinate more people. Once we do that, and we are comfortable that we have not created any incipient disaster, the next group that we will look at will be made known to you, and we'll do the same thing. So we go on a step-by-step basis, and until eventually we hope to get to the point in September, towards the middle or end of September, hopefully, that we're talking about children going out to school. That is, if all goes well. But you've seen what has been happening. Things may not go well, and therefore you don't despair, you don't get tired. We just have to respond and respond sensibly. So those are the programs we have in front of us, and today we go forward from there. If you have any questions, we'll take them now. Identify yourself and we'll take your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kimberly D'Souza from TTT News. Prime Minister, you've been looking ahead, so you're thinking in terms of maybe removing the curfew, opening the construction sector, and of course the reopening of the borders. Can you tell us if the July 4th restrictions will still stand? The July 4th lifting of those restrictions?
July 4th.
That will be adjusted.
Well, I didn't mention the curfew. I said the extent of the curfew, and I said that next weekend, the last adjustment we made for extended period on weekends should be the last of it, and then after that we go back to the normal curfew weekend, where your curfew starts at 9 o'clock, as again 6 o'clock. And but of course, I'm saying that hoping that things stay, on the same trajectory that we are on now. If the trajectory changes drastically, I will have to say something else. And with respect to the state of emergency, we hold on to that for a while longer until we can see clearer. So that remains in place for a while longer. As we go forward, we get to see further down the road.
Health regulations.
Yeah.
You mean the health regulation? Yeah. All right. You clarify that for the.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister, Minister of Health, CMO and colleagues, media, all listening, public at Trinidad and Tobago. The question you're asking is really, you'd recall at the start of the state of emergency, we separated the regulations. So there's state of emergency regulations that govern essential, non-essential, the times during the day, curfew, etc. That is something separate. As we went to Parliament, that will continue until the end of the state of emergency, unless the Prime Minister determines prior to that. we also separated out of that public health regulations that have the 4th of July date. At the time when we were setting that, and that is for mandatory mask wearing, that is to do with the border control by the Ministry of National Security and some of those other public health that we carved out and kept separately. So that's something we will look at when we meet with the Prime Minister and with the Minister of Health and the CMO and his team. We will also take a look at that, because one of the things that will have to change, but we may have to extend beyond the 4th of July, for example, is the borders. You've heard the Prime Minister, the date we're looking for a change in our border policy is the middle of July. So by definition, that takes us beyond the 4th of July. So it is very likely we'll extend that, because that's the mandatory mask wearing. That is when you're in a car, you have to wear your mask if there's more than one person, and other public health regulations separate from the state of emergency, Prime Minister. So the answer is yes, we are likely to extend that depending on how things are going at the time.
Thank you for that legal clarification. I always defer to the lawyers. Might not be a good thing, but it's an expected thing. Yeah, so as I'm trying to say, we are going to be making these adjustments, but it's all going to be governed by the state of the infection level at the time the decision has to be made. Hopefully, we can make these decisions for improved arrangements, assuming that the infection levels would have been improved. Okay?
Just want to follow up on that question a little bit. The next weekend, could you just clarify that for me? Would we be imposing the same thing that we have this weekend?
Whatever happened this weekend, if you recall, at an earlier time, early in June, I said that the weekends in June, we will make certain adjustments to allow the curfew to require people to stay indoors longer. So it is the curfew that starts earlier at 7 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and goes until 5 o'clock in the morning of the following day, and then comes back into effect on the 10 o'clock and goes that way. That is the one that we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 weekends. What I said was that the next weekend we are going to do that again, and hopefully for the last time. And then what will be in place would be the curfew that begins at 9 o'clock, which is the one that you had been accustomed to before, if you could ever get accustomed to a curfew. But that's what I said. So the changes made for the month of June on the weekends, when June ends, those special arrangements for the June month, hopefully the first weekend of July, July 3rd, would be a weekend where there'll be a curfew, but it will start a little later, and it will not confine you as much as how you were confined in June.
Prime Minister Joshua Simonga from Guardian Media. Prime Minister, you did mention of the possible donation from the American government. Is it that they promised vaccines outright, or is it subject to qualification? And
I can't answer that now. You and I have the same information, and we have had a lot of conversations, which are confirmations of the public information, that the United States government and the EU has also agreed to put more resources into COVAX. So it is likely that somewhere down the road, the COVAX supply could be improved. And also the United States made 2 announcements. One initially was of 80 million doses of vaccines for distribution, and then later on an additional 20 million, something like that. But so far, we do not have any information as to what the allocation is going to be and what the conditions are going to be like in terms of volumes and so on. So we just have to wait and see what comes out of there. But in the meantime, that's why I say it's a tier 4. We have tier 1, 2, and 3, where we have other sources of vaccine that we are aiming to use. And if others come along, we'll be very happy.
In the opening of the borders, in the US, I saw reports of people buying vaccine cards, fake vaccine cards. How would the government treat with that?
Well, that is an operational aspect of things. People print money. Eh? So that is not to be surprising to anybody. people print US dollars. They print TT dollars. So you have to put things in place to ameliorate or minimize that kind of action. But there will be certain kinds of requirements, and if documents are forged and they are sufficiently well forged, there isn't much we can do about it unless you say no to everybody. But we believe that the vast majority of people will be using legal documents, and that would be what we can have to pitch the parameter will be pitched at that.
On the same vaccine issue, there are some countries not accepting citizens who are vaccinated by certain vaccines, certain brands of vaccines. How are we treating with that?
You remember when AIDS was the big thing in terms of human infection? And there was a period of time when if you came from Haiti, you couldn't enter certain countries because you were supposed to be a Haitian virus. These things will work their way through, right? And if countries take decisions like that, there isn't much that we could do about it, right? But our policy of once the vaccine is carrying the authorization of the WHO, we will accept it, right? And it wouldn't be a preference situation. The yardstick by which you will be allowed to use it here in this country is that it must be one that is a WHO approved vaccine, right? And of course, if our people go abroad having used WHO vaccines, right, we will then, because you see, if you don't do that, it becomes unmanageable. Because you have someone said, I've been vaccinated with a vaccine and call a name. What are you going to do? Says you don't have any information on it. You didn't do any tests on it. Nobody has certified it. So you can't just say, okay, since you say you're vaccinated, you go ahead. That makes a nonsense of the whole thing. So you have to have some kind of arrangement as to what is acceptable and what is not. And of course, I started out by saying, well, we have a policy in this country which is in place. And of course, the policy can be adjusted because there are vaccines, but they all would have got, the ones that are being used in the countries that we would expect to get people to come to us from, the emergency use vaccinations, right? If those are the ones, then we haven't got a problem. On the other hand, we have to come up with we have to respond to people who are coming from other areas where they say, I've been vaccinated with XYZ. How do we treat with that? And the answer is, we have to be guided by the WHO emergency use authorization.
And the flip side to that is some countries not accepting locals who have been vaccinated with some.
That's entirely up to the country that is doing that. We can only speak for what happens in Trinidad and Tobago. And when our nationals go abroad, wherever you're going, you will have to subject yourself to the conditions that they have laid down.
Just for clarification, persons who are not vaccinated will be allowed into the country when they go
under different conditions to the ones who are vaccinated. Right? But you will get more details a bit later on.
Prime Minister, there's been significant data collection from our medical and health side of covering the pandemic. Is the government conducting assessments of the socio-economic impact in communities, particularly poorer communities?
Well, different government departments are engaged in that kind of work, and eventually it will all become put together in managing government's policy going forward and managing the economic aspect of it. But I mean, the Ministry of Finance departments, the Central Bank, the Social Services Department, the Ministry of Health, they all are going to have databases on this. And then you put them all together and create, it's like strands of a rope, and that will give you an idea as to what we do.
Would that leave room for possible increased social support systems? First of all, do we have the finances to be able to increase those?
Well, the finances are very, very limited, and that's why we are prioritizing it. And of course, the thing about Trinidad and Tobago, we already had in place a very large social support system. That is something that ought not to be lost on the population. Before the pandemic, Trinidad and Tobago, unlike many countries, we have a very large social support system, from non-contributory old age pension covers a lot of people. People who who are miscellaneous, people who have disabilities, support for orphans, support for people who have lost certain arrangements. We have a national insurance system in place. So about a significant portion of the national budget goes into subsidies. Those subsidies are in fact social support, or they're meant to be, but because they're broad-based, they support everybody. But in Trinidad and Tobago, your water rate, your electricity, your transportation between the islands, your hospital care, all of these things are already taken up by the state. If you look at the United States, the richest country in the world, the biggest problem for anybody earning money in that country who's not a millionaire is your cost for healthcare. You know. In Trinidad and Tobago, healthcare is provided by the state. And most of the population take it for granted and demand more of it and badmouth it as often as you could. But that is a major contribution from the state. School children are supported by the state fully from ECC to university. So already, to answer your question, the state has picked up a huge amount of what needs to be picked up, even in a pandemic. And now we've gone further by doing more than we normally would do, by getting additional support to people literally providing food on the table. Because one of the major exercises we're engaging now is to provide foodstuffs to households, so that nobody should be able to say, I'm in Trinidad and Tobago and I have not known where to look to get a meal, because we do have certain things in place either directly through the state, through the churches, and so on. I mean, when you reach the point where an opposition MP could be quarreling and telling you he handed out 600 hampers in his constituency, you know that there's something in place. Okay?
The private sector has done enough?
Well, the private sector keeps doing as much as it could. There's always room for further, but you must remember the private sector also is beaten down by this pandemic. A lot of the private sector earnings have been negatively affected by a number of factors arising out of the pandemic. They too, in some instances, private sector businesses are tottering on the closure or struggling to keep those people who they keep on the payroll. So it's not as if they have a pool that they could just share it out. In fact, you would observe they are calling on the government in a similar vein to provide assistance to them. And significant assistance have come to the private sector from the same pot of the state's consolidated fund.
With the opening of construction, construction and street food go hand in hand. What's the consideration for takeout from restaurants, opening of street food?
House food. For a few weeks, I presume. You can't have it both ways. If we do that and we capsize the arrangement, and Dr. Hines comes here and tells us that we got a redoubling, and Dr. Richards comes and tells us we have no beds in the hospital, street food gone, you know. So what we'll suggest, for the period when there is no street food, make a sandwich at home, put your pot on fire at home, at least for a little while. And then we will get to the street food stage where when we bring out street food, it doesn't pose that additional threat and risk. It's a management of risk, which you manage by the reduction in the number of people. We'd love to have everybody out doing everything, you know. But because that is what the virus would require, we have to forego certain things for the time being.
You did not want to say what would come next. In terms of
I have an idea, but if I tell you no, you will start to behave as though I didn't tell you that, and you'll turn it upside down and just create more difficulty for us. You, personally.
Clarify again, in terms of the time period that you're leaving.
I was only joking, right?
Construction would stay open by itself for how long? And then the next for how long? When do you want to give that time period?
I wouldn't want to do that, because when we take that step forward and carry that large population of people out, we just have, I wouldn't tell you for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks, we have to wait and see. And if when we do that, we are still in a good position, maybe for a week or two after, then we could say, okay, now we can add a bit more, right? So, and I'm just being told by my colleague here that between construction and hardwares, we've vaccinated 15,000 people. That is what gives us some element of comfort to bring these people out, because most of them are vaccinated. And of course, it takes a little while for the vaccine to begin to have an effect. So you still have to be very careful. But it's a cohort of the population which is in a better position than others. And the vaccination program allows us to take this early entry of the. And of course, in manufacturing, we had another 10,000 people in manufacturing. When we said vaccinate to operate, right? That's what we mean. Because this group of people, right, who are vaccinated and have to come out, they are a little more protected than the rest of us, right? And that is how I want to see the conversation go. It is not about, but let me not raise it because it doesn't make any sense.
Prime Minister, with regards to the vaccine, again, could you bring as much clarity as possible to the whole Pfizer issue?
What?
Pfizer issue, the 18 vials.
That. When you're home and told not to go to work, and you are also on the government payroll in the parliament and you have nothing to do, you could get involved in all kinds of things, you know. It just keeps the mind going. There's nothing to clarify, because it was clarified from day one. But you know, it was so simple, so straightforward, and because you're predisposed not to believe, because as I said before, in this country, especially now, people have been so accustomed to being lied to that when you tell them the truth now, as I've been telling you all along, you have a little difficulty dealing with it. That gift of the 400 doses to vaccinate 200 people came to the government for permission to accept the gift. A department in the Ministry of National Security, their colleagues who they work with in the United States offered them that handful of vaccines. They didn't accept it. They came to the government and asked, as they normally would do, because government departments don't accept gifts left willy-nilly all over the place. They have to get some authorization. That authorization was given to accept it for that purpose. So it starts with that. And for those of you who raised and made a big issue of the fact that I didn't raise it here, and it got front page about hush hush and secrecy and curious, I'm glad you had something to put on your front page. Because clearly, if I had mentioned it here, you'd have had a blank first page. I could not have mentioned it here last Saturday because after the government gave the approval for the department to accept the gift, no information came back as to when the gift would actually be handed over or when it would actually arrive in the country. So when I spoke here at 2 o'clock last week, I had no idea where the gift was. What I did know is that an offer was made and the department here was authorized to accept it. It was later in the night that I discovered that whoever had offered it actually brought it. Yeah? And in so doing, they brought it into our normal entry system. And I see all kind of conspiracy theory, right? Because somebody was trying to sneak in. There was no sneaking it in. If we had said no to it, we would have said no to 400 vaccines. Just 400 more than we had. And of course, it turned out to be Pfizer vaccine. And of course, as you know, some people feel that Pfizer vaccine is the Rolls Royce and you have to get that. There was nothing to it. And there was no secrecy. As a matter of fact, the last I heard about it, it went through all the clearance processes and got into the hands of the National Security Department, and they would have used it.
Yes.
It was used up under the supervision of the Ministry of Health. So what is the problem other than the conspiracy theorists had to have something to do because they were just idle?
We need to clarify the times for next week.
I'm sorry?
The times.
Yes, please.
Okay, just to clarify the times for the last weekend in June that the Prime Minister, you all would recall at the start of June, what we did is we went with the curfew times, reduced time, a longer curfew time on the weekends, from 7 p.m. on a Friday to 5 a.m. on a Saturday, 7 p.m. on a Saturday to 5 a.m. on a Sunday, 7 p.m. on a Sunday to 5 a.m. the following day. It is only on the first week that we had 2 public holidays that we took a decision to go from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. on that first public holiday till 5 a.m. the next day. So Prime Minister, for next weekend, is it that we will go the 7 p.m. on the Friday into 5 a.m. on the Saturday, 7 p.m. on Saturday into 5 a.m. on Sunday, 7 p.m. into Sunday into 5 a.m. on the Monday. It is not what we're experiencing this weekend because of the public holiday today and then the decision for us to just try and slow things down this weekend. So the shortened times the Prime Minister was talking about, or the longer curfew times, would be 7 p.m. into 5 a.m.
Everybody who's listening.
So it was reported by the Education Minister that around at least 2,000 students would have dropped out of school during this period here. How much of a concern is that to you? And
if one child drops out of school, it's of great concern to me and to all of us. But in the middle of the pandemic, we know that there was stresses on certain families, certain children, and some people didn't get the kind of support that they should have had, and it would have resulted in them not going through the school system. That's something that is going to come back to us eventually. We will not leave it that way. We'll have to try and find those people later on and see how we can get them back on track for their education in some form or the other. But it is not surprising that that would have happened. And there are other kinds of difficulties that we're not talking about yet. Because even those children who have not dropped out of the system, who remained in the system, because of the nature of what the system had become, there are deleterious effects that would have happened to some of those children. So we do have work to do going forward. Right?
Prime Minister, could you give us a timeline in terms of how soon you expect or would like the entire sectors to open back and be fully out?
I would like all the sectors to reopen tomorrow morning. But we can't have that because there are significant constraints. And the major constraint is too many people out together, close to one another. We become guaranteed to have community spread again and national disaster. So I couldn't give you the date and the time you're looking for. What I tried to give you today was the action of coming out cautiously by sectors, because that's how we are approaching it. I mean, there are other leaders in some other countries that simply said, oh, look, come out, you know, everybody come out, and die till you stop dead. We didn't do that, right? That's one option, you know, and that option has been used. What we've been doing all along is trying to save everybody as far as we are able to. We did everything that we could to give everybody a chance to be saved. And some of us, as I said earlier on, I'm sure all of us in this room and all of us listening here know of somebody who were affected and probably would have passed away during this pandemic. It's not a joke, and the pandemic is still with us. We are not in a post-pandemic period, and we will not be there for a little while. So let us not get too tired. Thank you very much, and we look forward to an improved report as we go forward. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Dr. Trotman. Sorry, Doc. I keep you for the last. Talk to us about what's happening at home and what's happening in the hospital with respect to persons who require care.
Honorable Prime Minister, ministers, members of the listening and viewing public, members of the media, CMO, excuse me, my fellow colleagues, Dr. Richards and Dr. Hines. Coming last, especially following our Honorable Prime Minister, is a big task. But the task ahead of us is even bigger. And the task ahead of us is to win the war against COVID-19. We are faced in a position where we have thousands of people that are sick at home. We want to emphasize again for the practices at home that we isolate properly, even while we are at home. Those who are COVID positive at home, yes, it's your family. Yes, you want to be close, you want to show compassion, and you want to help. But the way to do that is not to be close together. We have to be sure that in the home, we are practicing our 3 W's, and we're doing it properly. We have to be at home at this time to try to decrease the spread and the congregation out there. But while we are at home, we would want you to please practice the 3 W's properly. For our patients who are in the hospital, amply being taken care of by all of the hospital staff, and I want to say thank you to them as I always do. We do still have people who are ill in the hospital of different levels. And while we are practicing what we need to do for those patients, we need for you to decrease the burden by not becoming one of those patients yourself. That's the best thing you can do for us. And in looking forward to all of what we are trying to offer as a health team, the only way for us to be able to do it is to keep our numbers in a downward fashion. And it's simple. Yes, when you get the call to vaccinate, we want for you to respond and take the vaccine that is in front of you, that have gone under scrutiny that you and I cannot do. That would have been done for you already. So take the vaccine that's offered to you. But remember, we can't vaccinate everyone at once. So what do? You still have armor. You put up your armor. 3 W's. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. And watch your distance. To all the fathers and fathers who are fathers and mothers who are fathers and other people in the society that are fathers, happy Father's Day and also happy Labor Day. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That's a good note on which to end, and I want to join Dr. Trotman in wishing all our fathers and guardians of children who are fathers, I want to wish you a happy Father's Day. Stay safe. Stay safe. Thank you.
FaceTiming online, group video calls on BIP, binging new series, gassing up friends on IG, and dancing to the hottest songs on T-Music. Enjoy the rhythms, the vibes, the old talk, and live your best digital life with a one-day Digicel Prime bundle. Get 20 gigabytes of any use LTE data, dedicated app data for music, movies, video calls, and more. Plus 30 anywhere minutes and free digital calls for only $25. Digicel, better together.
This is the voice of Tuesday, Seventh-day Adventist. We are preaching Emergency Alert broadcast, which is from the Tuesday Seventh-day Adventist Church. We will be featuring voices of brethren from different parts of the world, preaching the gospel, preaching prophecy as it relates to current events and the ending of the world. Listen to us on 91.9 FM every Sunday from 9:15 to 9:45